Hafa and welcome everyone to the Guam Congress building and to this hearing today. This is the Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture. It's now called to order on Monday, August 12, 2024, and the time is 2:06 p.m. In compliance with the Open Government Law, notice for this public hearing was published in the Guam Daily Post and posted to the Government of Guam Public Notice portal on Monday, August 5th and Friday, August 9th, 2024. Notice was also sent by email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. And this hearing is being live streamed on the Guam Legislature's YouTube channel. The only real rules I have are that if you're going to be the one testifying, please state your name so that when we transcribe these proceedings, we'll be able to identify who's speaking. And those who are testifying, if we could ask you to stay for questions from the senatorial panel, we will do that after everyone's done testifying. And then if we just want to minimize distractions by moving around or talking while other people are testifying, of course, and then we want to, we're not here to debate, we're just here, the senators have the prerogative to ask questions or not, and it's up to them what they're going to ask. All right, so we have two agenda items. One is the reappointment of Earl J. Garrido to serve as a member of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission for a term of 3 years from the date of confirmation appointment. And after that, we will hear the appointment of Jeffrey John Ibanez to serve as a member of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission for a term of 3 years to fill the expired term of John Reyes, which was from April 11, 2023 to April 10, 2026. I'd like to thank my colleagues for being here, beginning with Senator Chris Duenas and Senator Roy Kinata. All right, so we're going to begin first with the reappointment of Earl Garrido. So Mr. Garrido, if you could come and sit in the middle. But before we hear from you, I'd like to hear from those who are here to testify on his behalf. And I'd like to recognize the chairperson of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission, Ms. Arlene Berdalio. If she would like to testify, she's welcome to come. And any other members of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission who wish to testify, you are welcome. And we'll call the rest in order after that. So this CHamoru Land Trust, and here we have the another member, Mr. Herrera, David Herrera, and also Mr. Cruz. Joey Cruz is the acting director for the CHamoru Land Trust Commission today, correct? Sizos Masi for being here. All right, so the CHamoru Land Trust Commission, according to the statute, has 5 members, all appointed by the governor, confirmation of the legislature. They were originally supposed to be staggered, and they all served 3 years, but they were supposed to be staggered, so they didn't all expire at the same time. Since 2019, there have only, well, they were always one short since 2019 and have fluctuated between 4 and 3 members. The commission is charged, well, there's a criteria. It says, at least 3 of the members shall be native Chamorro, and they're paid a stipend, $50 each meeting. And then it says, in addition, the commission shall employ and fix the compensation for an administrative director who shall serve in a full-time capacity and who shall exercise such powers and authority as may be delegated to him by the commission. The director shall be a native Chamorro. Furthermore, the commission may employ and fix the salary of professional consultants, and the commission shall meet regularly on the 3rd Thursday of every month at 1 p.m., or more often as determined by the chairperson of the commission. So again, this is a governing board. I just wanted to make sure that that's clear because we've been having debates about what the boards do sometimes. And okay, so we will now hear the testimony. I also have received written testimony from Robert G.P. Cruz, attorney Robert Cruz, and Lydia Talu. All right, so we'll begin with the chairperson, Ms. Berdalio. I'd like to welcome Senator Joanne Brown. Thank you for joining us, Senator.
Good afternoon, Speaker Terlaje, Senators Duenas, Ginata, and Brown. I'm Arlene Bordallo. I serve as the chairperson of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. I hereby support the appointment of Earl J. Garrido to serve as a member of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. Mr. Garrido's life experience as a retired Guam Power Authority employee and presently a real estate agent. His knowledge in land benefit the Commission's mission. The Commission has its challenges. Mr. Garrido is able to determine what's best for CHamoru Land Trust Commission. Thank you.
Sijus Masi, Madam Chair. Bordallo. Mr. Herrera, Commissioner Herrera.
Buenos días, Madam Speaker, Senadores. No inaano si David Babauta Herrera, no komisyono gi esti nangukuntano mafatuzu para be testigo para be o aloba o para be favor e para makonfirma si Earl Garrido talo ni para esti na employee para o ata ni komisyon. Durante ni tempoco ni ane matuzu gi CHamoru Land Trust dati gi Febrero 2022 na finet na Brian na umaliam dyan si Commissioner Earl Garrido. Pesgi durante nezo na tempo i ane humalumo gi Febrero no ezo na causa in fafana i causan i sagang kumarera ezi tawagang pagu i Guam Racing Federation no. Pes iilaw si Luta Commissioner Garrido taimano no pesa dan taimano no investitiga i causa nezo na no hemplo i sagang kumarera zan ko silong i natanya zan sigun gi lai ezo na lai publiko no 12-22 no 2 o 112 12-112 zan ezo na lai i public law 35-112. Sigun gi natanu gi as Commissioner Garrido no gezo na tempo pepesa ko no aata nilai sigun gi no diretso pat sigun gi kalan no guaha no picadillas. Pes humano no munazan ezo na causa no za tana huzung ezo na bat kada Guam Racing Federation put bulan problema gi eno na hemplo i no Guam Environmental Protection ma kontradisizu ma kontradisi i grading clearing and grading na reglamento lugar di clearing and grading ma no guado ki lugar za ma destrosa i lugar ni gini ni DPW na reglamento. Después de eso no NA Parks and Recs na requirement ni clearing and grading gi halumtano ezo talu analisa ko studia ezo siya na hemplo afa no guahana atsaki gitano iman samoru no pes no estazo claro no na ta pega zo gimanda feso malum ezo na causa i ta gangi global recycling o ilaw talu si Commissioner Garrido no i taimano analisa ezo na lugar sa azigi para po considera gi corazon no ko no sina be no bota za be favor pat no be renuncia pes ane natin izi global talo bula no matsuda lonya bula gini ni no transformer pes esta in katkula na guaha problema gwi na lugar gi global uno i minat dos no taza at kilon esta kana 10 años de no humalum ezo na compañía 12 hectáreas a kukupa zani un centimo ina pasina fera di 100 mit ni no manapasi ni ane matu zakalan in agang holong gi komisyon ni para ben investiga hafa tay manu na kukupazi 12 hectares za ni hafa na at kilon. Pes monazan ezo na kausan no kalan analisa talo si Commissioner Garrido tay manu hinasonya ni para pesa i problema ni gininizi coco recycling. I coco recycling talo otru ane humalo mo gi February gi 2022 7 milyon na salapi i land trust i nangukuntano a DDB i coco 7 milyon. Pesu faisin talo zo analisa tamanus timan katkula na i 7 milyon ni i land trust a DDB i coco tumunog i 7 milyon, 6 milyon, 5 milyon. Pes pago na ora i CHamoru Land Trust na liability gezo na kumpanya kana 5 milyon. 5 million, 5.8 million na liability pa ezo na kumpanya i coco. Wanalisa talo tay mano manhasu si commissioner ni no para aregla zo na problema. Pesta pega zo gimbandas tas ti mina threat set na kausa no i mina 4 i panagbola zi golf course maagang. Pesta inanalisa talo zi golf course ane malumo gi Fibero 900 mil di binya i no GICC i Guam International Country Club 900 di binya gi land trust. Después na anyo analisa talo sti taymano no pesa i problema no fanyago zo na idea i afaisin ni kumpanya ko hafa planumo ni sinya on na tuno kesti 900 na DB no ni at kilon para tuno papa sa esta i empleado i inangokuntano para umaivic i GICC lo atan zo analisa talo si Commissioner Garrido tay manus ti pesa ni para kubri za para na la ezo na problema o ezo na kumpanya. Pesa zigi no presentas ti na commissioner no iling mala za tatsogi zo muno payment plan uno zan dos kosinya hamzo na batkada ni kukupa kikila zi 200 hectares na tono no na para ko hafa mas no na idea sinya hasu ni para kubri za para continua i 15 años tetenan na at kilon ni para i akupay tano. Después naman matutati i ezo na kumpanya za ilinya sige idean mami no commissioner para Commissioner Garrido si Commissioner Buddazo Zanguao Zan Staubergi Zumami Chairman si John Reyes Jr. Fes ezo na hemplo no ma-decide na no sinya ma-continua i 200 mil na hektarya loti para mapanagbola. Ezi panagbola i golf lelekta no. Za ma-recommenda na no zangin man mago famzu ni tauto i nangukuntano i kumpanyas ti ni International Country Club Building niya na ben no famaisin fabot that no di amenda esti wegun panagbola za ben pega zi mga solar panel no pes madiskuti zo indiskuti ko mauli ko i at kilon gi sagan panagbola 24 mil kada mes tapega 25 mil no za takat kula za inefresinia za na kumpanya ileg nga bay pasi todo do i 25 mil gi 15 años no zan i ansina talo 15 años talo za benapasi talo gezo na hemplo i 25 mil lo sina hamzo in price i fair market value gezo na tano para 30 años pesumuzong rebi mil sinya makusetsa gezo na arreglamento pes. And now todo na hemplo i aumenta o pesa i temano si Commissioner Garrido a pesa no i lai i 12-226 dan i 35-112 rules and regulations ni commercial ko sinya pesa za para o diseya ni para i minauli ki tau tanu i tanu i CHamoru Land Trust. Sa sta be hutsum gesti na hemplu na i CHamoru Land Trust distima fanyagu ki 1975 esta pagu ki 2024 mafat lampasu man ma no timan matrata pareu ni tautoi kumechanti. Very basic in English. The CHamoru Land Trust has been victimized by the commercial ventures of the special interests. That's my closing. If in English, if in CHamoru sinay pila, lo be hutsuma gesti na no pas na ungan be alaw ba za be bota hungan ni pero ma continua si Commissioner Garrido talu unbray. Dangkulan si Zusmasi.
Jesus Masi. Commissioner Herrera. Then see Acting Director Joey Cruz. Mr. Cruz.
Good afternoon, Speaker Terlaje, Senator Dueñas, Senator Canatan, Senator Brown. My name is Joey Cruz, and I'm currently the Acting Administrative Director for the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to provide oral testimony regarding the reappointment of Mr. Earl J. Garrido to serve as a Commissioner on the CLTC Board. Mr. Garrido has served on the CLTC Board for a little over 2 years now. During his tenure, Mr. Garrido has been very critical of the compliance of CLTC commercial licensees. Moreover, Mr. Garrido has displayed his ability to think critically about CLTC's residential and agricultural lessees. Aside from those characteristics and Mr. Garrido's professional and personal accomplishments, Mr. Garrido's willingness to continue to serve the CHamoru Land Trust Commission speaks positively to his character. I'm in full support of Mr. Garrido's reappointment. Thank you.
Jesus Masi. All right. If you don't mind, if you can wait for questions from our senatorial panel after additional testimony. I'm sorry, the second person to sign in, I can't read the name here, but it looks like sorry, J. John or J. period something. Can you read that? Is that you, Mr. Ibanez? Okay. And then Angelina Mummert, if you'd like to present testimony, you're welcome. Mr. Yingling, if you'd like to present oral testimony. Doreen Borja signed up in support. Joseph Claveria submitted written testimony. And the senators have that. Oh, Ms. Mummert, you can come on up. Anita Cruz. Oh, please. And there's a, just signed up in support, Ms. Sorry, something Pangilinan. Okay, and we did Joey Cruz. Mike Brown. Okay. Richard Arroyo, would you like to present testimony? Oh, yes. For Mr. Garrido. And Johnny Taitano signed up in support. Ronald Laguatnia, if you would like to present oral testimony, you can have a seat. I think we still have one more. Okay, so Ms. Mummert, please state your name for the record. Oh, I'd like to recognize and welcome Senator Frank Blas, the Minority Leader, as well.
My name is Angelina Garrido Mummert. Hafade, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to write in support of Earl J. Garrido's reappointment to the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. As I said, my name is Angelina Garrido Mummert, and I'm writing to respectfully request that you and your committee members recommend to the full legislative body that Earl be confirmed to continue to serve as a member of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. I have known Earl all his life because he is my younger brother, so I'm well placed to speak on his merits, even those who work with him, more so perhaps because we grew up together in the same household. So, To continue, he's been in public service most of his life in the footsteps of our late parents, Joseph and Rosario Garrido. Between our parents and the two of us, we have combined more than a century's worth of public service to the island. He's a retired GovGuam employee, having worked for the Guam Power Authority for over 30 years. He rose through the ranks, working his way from entry level to supervisory positions throughout his government career. Not content to be fully retired, he sought out new challenges, and his second career took him into the real estate arena as a realtor, where he has worked for the past 17 years. So that goes to show I do know him. He also previously served as a member of the Cockpit Licensing Board and the Board of Equalization. He's proven himself to be a leader in our family, having served for many years as co-administrator of our grandfather's family estate. He's extremely good at finding solutions to difficult issues and educates himself on all the laws and regulations surrounding the issue before offering suggestions or making decisions. I've always known him to be a hard worker, committed to the betterment of our community. He has extensive knowledge and experience in government operations, but also expertise in real estate, and administrative experience running our family's estate. I'm fully confident he will continue to be a good asset to the CLTC, that he will work diligently to support the public law mandate to be responsible stewards of all trust lands, and that he will do his utmost to uphold the integrity of the CLTC. Sidus Maasi, and thank you for the opportunity to provide support for his reappointment. Respectfully, Angelina Mummer.
Sidus Maasi, Ms. Mummer. Senora.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker and Senators at present. My name is Anita Cruz. I'm one of the constituents of the CHamoru Land Trust, and my lease has been signed and recorded, and so I've been going to the meetings with CHamoru Land Trust, and my case has been tabled practically each time I've gone there. I think I've finally made a public comment on May, the last meeting that we had in May, and I'm requesting for a loan guarantee, and I have not, it's been way over a year now, and that I still haven't been able to get a decision from the commission despite whatever issues that I do have, which to me, I feel I have to speak up at this meeting, this hearing today, because I've been living unsafe conditions at my home as far as having mold build up now in my ceilings. And I'm a single parent. I only have one child, and she left me with 5 grandkids. And so being a single parent to 5 and trying to make a safe place for them to live in has been very difficult, only because the CHamoru Land Trust commissions have not been able to rectify whatever issues I have in the property. So I'm hoping with this hearing that I'll be able to get a decision, because it's, like I said, the typhoon was May of last year. We are now into August, a year and a half. My loan guarantee has not been granted. Now I went from $212,000 to $25,000, and a loan that I've signed with SBA. And so with today's hearing, Mr. Herrera has taken time out to come visit me at my home, view the area that I've been working on for the past over 10 years, and with issues that are coming up, he's been helping me or supporting my cause, even through humanitarian reasons. And if others were able to get a loan guarantee due to humanitarian reasons, then why am I not considered there also? Because I am living in a disastrous home, unsafe home, and my grandkids, when they do come, I have to put them aside. And we've been working really hard to try to get a decision. I mean, I've been going to every meeting that has been scheduled, and my case has been tabled. but the raceway has been heard, the solar farm has been heard. What about the constituents that are having problems right now? We're being put in the back burner. We can't move forward or backwards because there are others that will be heard first before us. So I'm not for or against, but I'm just kind of like voicing my opinion here that the commission has had so many twisted rules and regulations. We don't know what we're up against anymore. I mean, and our lease has been signed and recorded, but yet it seems like doesn't matter if your lease has been signed and recorded. This is a new public law, this is the rule, but I'm just pleading for the commissions to please make a decision and the legislature to help out if it comes to that point. Thank you for giving me this time and your effort.
That's all. Ms. Cruz. Thank you for sharing those concerns with us, and very relevant. I'm just checking if the director for CLTC is still here. We could call him. All right, next we have Mr.
Yes, good afternoon,
Arroyo.
Speaker Terlaje, Senator Joanne Brown, Senator Chris Duenas, Senator Frank Blas, Senator Roy Canata. My name is Richard Arroyo, and I come here in support for the confirmation for Mr. Earl Garrido. A consummate public servant, an individual I've known since I was a kid in the village of Agana Heights as a little boy, and I believe this an individual that will immerse himself to help the people's and their best interest, as we heard from Mrs. Cruz, and also as well as Antiana Brunello mentioning about his public service in GPA. So for Mr. Garrido and also the other commissioners to come out and to put themselves back in this position that we all know that the CHamoru Land Trust, has hurdles right now that they're jumping over right now, but to put himself back there to continue to his work and to continue to watch over the interests of the landowners and also the beneficiaries as we see our landowners pass every day, sadly. But we see this, and also, coming as myself, but also as a former deputy director of land management, I've seen the work of the CHamoru Land Trust, and also the constituents that come up to see us. And land management is the keeper of record, but CHamoru Land Trust also is the individuals that make sure that all the documents and the patterns of before they would give the land is followed before you'll make it to recording. So, I support full heart for Earl. I believe that him coming out to put himself up to be a commissioner again, it says a lot, and his heart for the people and to continue to watch out for the interests, which is very important. So thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity.
Mr. Arroyo.
Thank you.
Mr. Laguana.
Signora Gehelo. Gini spirito ni manainata. Nagayyo talo pago gini. Si Ronald Laguana zo. Gayyo gini tot komut samoro. Punitu itinutuhonyasti. Na dinanya sa unmenti I samoro. Za gaygi I corazono. Zani corazon Earl Loki. Zanesti siya man membro ki komisyon para minaulik iman samoro. Hunggan, uhungok esti testigunya si esti sainahu gini, lo bula problema. Pidisito ajo na problema, lo hunggan maaatan ni esti siya sa pupulan. Esti siya loki uatetendi huntan niya. Za kumugaha problema na nejo na tono pada jigi na gagaw niya ne. Lekko nagwaha rason. Necesita o matatigi I reglamento. Ti para mapreba, siya sinafa. Maulik sang grasa sa Diyos na manggaygi. Siya si Earl, si Dave, dan si Arlene. Sa ahuatan I chechunin niya. Migge problema gwi. Gwa tono ti mamimidi. Sa esta man ma-registra. Gwa siya man ma-registra. Tatawza, kalanedji ti ma-recourt. Watalogi mananai dos na tano, esti siya sumusuda na problema sa stabatu gino atendi. Hunggan magay bula problema low, esti siya dididi pud adomididi masosuda. Sa edzigi nagaigyo loki utunga sa distima establishes tinalay na siguro na umaprotehi itano iman Chamorro. Para iman mamala siya na henerasyon. Sa edzigi nagaigyo na support ti loki si Celuta Earl gini sa hunggan huli nagaigi ko rason niya para iminaulik iman tau-tauta. Sa hunggan Celuta Earl, tunga na gay puntus din na para edzi loan guarantee ti para gotpeazu nisisita unta tiji iginagaw niya i-komisyon. Pes kumo edzun matsogi na edzu lekon na umaregla no na tono. Sa gaigi gi korason niya esti siya piot si Celuta si Dave Herrera gini atana azu storianya todo ha explica todo i masusedi gi esti na inangokun tono atana azu na palabra inangokku pesu angokku loki esti siya sa gaigi loki no populan di pusia esti politika kwaha na manahalo mesti politika tana gi latsa para magot pep man maupusa isio tisi sa pamaprepa ji racetrack nanggan aja sa bulagi kutsinadas nisisita magwaduk mungan enji para masok taha azu sa gua bula sinaki besongana ezu sukati magwaiza no na palabra lo man mafahai sineksa iman Chamorro bastet nenno nisisita arregla no do spia na problema sa bula sinakin kaskau gui malofana za bula man mamakilwa masota kalanti matungo timatungo lo malolofana dia por dia para más de 20 años lo mangaigis tisha gaigis Celuta ro saulia sa saunauzu atetendis tisha untania entonces si Arlene Therese tisha lo gracias a Dios na Paraguay talu mena 4 jau angokus ti Celuta loki na upega gi corazonya na para iman tau-tauta para ta protehi itano. Senyor Speaker, basta na di talo na para ta fansiga manay ujung tano ta protehi ta susteni siya na tano para iman tau-tauta ni mamala siya na henerasyon. Por favor, aprebas de si Celuta Earl gini sa matutsinya di sincero jang gasgas ihinasonya para minaulik iman tau-tauta. Si Diyos masi.
Jesus Masi, Senor Laguatnia. Is there anyone else who'd like to testify on behalf of Mr. Garrido? Mr. Taitano. Press that button, yeah, and state your name for the record.
My name is John Paris Taitano, and it takes a mid-afternoon to get me out of the house. You know, I've been invited to many meetings and stuff, but the church comes first. The church always comes first. And with Mr. Garrido here, we grew up in the church. We were altar servers when we were knee-high to grasshoppers. And although he was from here in Agatna, and I was up there in Totu, we still maintained a very close relationship. I would have submitted a written testimony, but my writer is off island, so I had to fend for myself today. So I've come down here in full support of Mr. Garrido. We grew up together. We went to high school together. We never had the same girlfriends or anything, but he and I instilled a lot of trust and confidence in each other. And the only thing I have to say about this particular commission is it is really under fire. I mean, why anybody would want to serve on this commission is beyond me. With the last name like Taitano, they protect the land that I never had. So with that, I'm grateful. I'm really grateful. And so my wife always says that, hey, you talk too much, but I've seen Mr. Garrido in action. I've known what he's been through, and I support him fully here to sit on this CHamoru Land Trust Commission. And the only thing I ask is that you protect the lands that belong to the Tauto CHamoru. And on top of that, you adhere to the laws that already are in place to ensure that you will do that job in accordance to what is written. So before I end, I just want to also acknowledge Senator Brown. Good to see you. Senator Dueñas, Senator Frank Blas Jr., and Senator Kenata. Thank you all for your service to the people of Guam. Undong kuluna si Jesus Maxim.
Jesus Masa, Mr. Taitano. And now we'll hear from the nominee, Mr. Garrido.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, and the esteemed senators, Kinata, Blas, Dueñas, and Brown. Guahus Earl Garrido, I'm a serving board member over the last 18 months with the CHamoru Land Trust Commission, aka CLTC. I have been privileged to serve the people of Guam and the CLTC. I am dedicated and committed to serving the people of Guam and the CHamoru Land Trust. It's evident that I take my role seriously and strive to make informed decisions that are in the best interest of the community and CLTC. Addressing past discrepancies and working towards remediation shows our proactive approach to governance. During my tenure, we have been active in remediating discrepancies of the past years. CLTC, since its inception, has been fraught, harrowed, beset, oppressed, and plagued with irregularities. It's important for public officials to act responsible and diligently when dealing with complex issues, such as the Guam Raceway situation. When the current board and I remediated the contorted issues of the Guam Raceway situation, it took a minimum of 7 months of deliberation to finalize the eviction. The sitting board didn't just act rashly. The board cautiously took its responsibility meticulously. After gathering factual evidence, we set the wheels in motion to execute the eviction. Chapter 75 mandates clearly delineates the guidelines for qualification of land trust properties. We support and adhere to those guidelines as it applies on a case-by-case basis. I try to act cautiously instead of rashly on my decision-making. Decisions we make can be grace-saving as well as devastating. Certainly, it is best to err on the side of caution, best to remedy and or curtail backup situation without exacerbating the situation out of control. Isn't it easier to do due diligence up front and then to take a hasty reactionary path? CLTC has an enormous task ahead of it. I want to act based on informed decisions and not reacting to hearsay or special interest pressures. Adhering to the guidelines outlined in Chapter 75 and approaching each case on a case-by-case basis demonstrates a thoughtful and conscious or considerate decision-making process, taking the time to gather factual evidence and deliberate on decisions before taking action. Is critical to ensuring fairness and justice. I am cognizant that tenants holding land trust properties have vested their time, blood, sweat, and tears in developing their properties, all of which can never be recovered, just like time. There is no going back. Because of this, we, the board, must use our conclusions to evaluate the circumstances attached to each and every case that comes before us. We can only take an official position while we, the board, are in session. Then and only then can we scrutinize and remediate the issues before us. I place emphasis on due diligence, cautious decision-making, and avoid hasty reactions. By evaluating each situation carefully and considering all relevant factors, I help ensure that decisions made by CLTC are well-informed and beneficial to the community. It is also important to acknowledge the effort and investments made by tenants holding land trust properties. Understanding the personal stakes involved and taking a compassionate approach to resolving the issues can help foster trust and cooperation between the board and the community. There are two general categories of problematic leases. They are unlawful and irregular leases. CLTC must scrutinize and resolve to rectify the following categories of unlawful and irregular leases issued by previous CLTC management. A thorough review of all leases issued by CLTC to identify those that do not comply with regulations. We must work with tenants to rectify the issues, ensuring compliance with regulation. I feel CLTC can effectively rectify unlawful and irregular leases while maintaining a humanitarian approach and ensuring the well-being of its tenants. CLTC must follow strict eviction procedures to remediate all lawful and irregular leases. Illegal leases are ones that are not in compliance with the law, period. Whereas irregular leases subverts to undermine the power of the authority of the CLTC. Irregular leases attempt to subvert the law, such as favorable lease or a reduced payment for special interest groups. By following these procurable steps, the CLTC can effectively rectify unlawful and irregular leases while maintaining a humanitarian approach and ensuring the well-being of tenants. In closing, our commitment to making informed decisions, avoiding reactionary responses, and prioritizing the well-being of the community is essential for effective governance. I will strive to keep up the good work of serving the people of Guam and promoting transparency and accountability within the CLTC. Madam Chair and esteemed senators, I remain to serve. Cervantes and Sijus Maasi.
Sijus Maasi, Mr. Garrido. Commissioner Garrido. So this appointment is for a term of 3 years. It says from the date of confirmation appointment. The last appointment that you served was for a term of April, to fill the seat of Austin Duenas, whose term was from April 21 to April 10, 2024, and thus expired on April 10, 2024. And this new appointment was received June 24, 2024. So, thank you for outlining your role on this commission and the challenges that you have faced there. There's a couple particular questions I'd like to ask you, if you don't mind, and thank you to all of you who've submitted testimony as well. So one of the jobs of the commission is to hire an executive director. And so I was trying to look over, the executive directors, and I think after beginning in 2019, as far back as I went, in 2019, they had John Hattick for about 2 years. They all served 2 years or less, some just a few months. So they had Hattick, they had Angela Camacho, who was also an employee at the Guam Housing Corporation. While she was the executive director at the CLTC, there was Alice Tyrone, served about 10 months, I think. And then recently, now John Birch was appointed, I think in 2022. And as acting, he was also the executive director of the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission at the time. And now, so Joey Cruz, he's been with the CHamoru Land Trust Commission as an employee for many, many years. So he's always willing to act in the acting capacity when necessary, and I want to thank him for that. And his work is very good. So he's now the acting director. But it seems to me that these directors have all been kind of nominated by the governor to your board, and then your board acts on it. But according to the statute, it's supposed to be the board that hires and compensates your director as you see fit. And I wanted to know if you are able and willing to do that, to solicit for your director and to get one that is competent and can serve your commission for for, you know, a solid period of time so we can have some continuity and actually achieve our goals. Are you willing and able to do that?
Madam Speaker, with that knowledge tucked into my belt now, I have no objections into allowing the CLTC to advertise for a director position, and we can screen candidates, and at the end of the day, if the candidate shows that they are qualified to hold such a position, I would give a yes vote.
All right, well, I'm pretty sure that I've raised this at every confirmation hearing that I've had as to how, if you're going to be able to hire a director. And it's going to take some work, I think, on the side prior to that. Like, you're going to have to come up with what are the qualifications? What do you need right now, right? Particularly, what has been the issue that we can't prioritize or move forward? And those are the things I think that are going to have to be determined, and then it's really going to take a lot of willpower, I think, to resist, you know, pressure any other way, and make sure that you guys are selecting, men and women are selecting a director that is going to serve the commission. Attendance at meetings, I think I looked at, and you don't really have an issue of attendance at the meeting. You've been able to attend these meetings.
Yes, I've attended every meeting so far since my appointment.
Yeah, that's what I've seen on the record. All the three of you have attended every meeting, almost every meeting. Sometimes you have medical, but other than that, you've always been very diligent. And these meetings are not short meetings. I think if you compare them across the government of Guam, these are probably the longest meetings that occur in the government of Guam, because you take care of, you know, some old agenda items, and then you go into cases, and this is something unique. And I don't know if there's a way we can streamline this. I'd like to see that happen. I really think the commission needs to prioritize its agenda so that you're taking care of what was stated in your strategic plan that you were going to accomplish from 2022 to 2025, and that is, you know, organization in your staffing, the information technology that you need in order to make informed decisions and to plan effectively, to make sure that you have standard operating procedures, everybody's following the same, we don't have disparities going forward, because those were how we got stuck. We are stuck on the disparities of the past, trying to resolve them, and they seem to keep changing. Even the ones that we had a list from 2018, now it seems that CHamoru Land Trust is coming up with new lists of disparities, and it just seems somewhat inconsistent, and we need to see some consistency. These are all strategic goals laid out in your strategic plan, or that was put forward by the previous chair, John Reyes, during his tenure. The other one was to, you know, take care of the employees, evaluations, mid-year reviews, training, development, so that they can do what is mandated by the commission. And then this is my thing, registering the properties. You have the largest inventory of properties in the government of Guam. Registering the properties used to not be a problem. It used to be regular. I thought there was progress, but it seems like in the last few years, the progress has really waned. Registering the properties, surveying the properties. In order to do this, because of your huge inventory, you have to make priorities. You're going to have to prioritize which properties you're going to do these for, and at every meeting, that's what should be reported. That's what you should talk about. What's our progress in our strategic goals? Because we're seeing now some of these people who were unable to get their loan guarantees is because the property wasn't registered. And if this was addressed systematically every meeting, and any issues between you and the Attorney General's office resolved, they never had any problem taking care of the land registrations before. And I know you've had teams that work together with the Department of Land Management, even surveying. I mean, we've had all kinds of different types of surveying issues, but I'm not sure now, it seems like recently I heard there's a new shift now. The employee that used to be with land management, your employee at land management has now come back to CLTC, I'm not sure, but the surveying used to not, at least we used to be able to survey those large tracts of land that we deemed to be priority. But now, I don't see that in the agendas, so I can't tell the progress. The public can't tell the progress unless, you know, I interrogate Mr. Cruz or the director or something, which shouldn't really have to happen. And then, of course, strategic goal number 3 is infrastructure. Create a priority listing for the installation of infrastructure, collaborate with utility agencies, and explore funding options. Do you believe that your continuance on this commission is going to contribute or address these strategic goals?
Madam Speaker, I believe that if reappointed, my focus will be on helping to develop infrastructures for current leaseholders that we have. We have to start from somewhere. And it's been a big mess in the past, but you know, this is a new day. This is a very proactive board that is seated in CLTC right now. I mean, we may not always see eye to eye, but we work together as a unit. That is not beyond our line of vision. We will look into very seriously what avenues we have for providing infrastructure to our current leaseholders, and then to find some way to include the upcoming leaseholders on CLTC properties. Especially up in the north, because it's very critical, because that's where our water lens is located. So we cannot condone septic tanks or cesspools up in the north, otherwise it may filter down into our water, and it's going to take decades to try and rectify a failure in our water lens. So yes, that is part of what we want to do. That is part of the vision of the CLTC and the current board. We want to make things better for our constituents, but also at the same time, we have to make sure that we're protecting the environment for the people of Guam.
All right. I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful that the acting director testified that you are very keen on making sure that the commercial leases, that the revenues, that they are in compliance. But it does seem, and I agree with Ms. Anita, that if you look at your agendas over the past few months, the agendas are not organized the way your strategic plan is organized. They're organized by one group came to you or came to the staff and wanted to be put on the agenda, and they're put on the agenda. And then one group wanted to be put on your agenda, and they're put on your agenda, as opposed to what's our status on registrations, surveys, what's our status on the 1995 lease and the priority listing. Are we processing them, right? What's the status of the infrastructure? What's the status of our different options? You've pursued USDA, we passed that bill. What is the status of other options? We've got that Biden infrastructure that the CHamoru Land Trust does not seem to be advocating for. We've got the GWA that directors ago, we talked about them talking with GWA, and all of these things to me, it's like it has to be very systematically continue to be put on your agenda, and that's the stuff you have to make progress on. How are we going to, we haven't issued leases, residential leases in years, yet we continue to entertain commercial leases. And the criteria for commercial lease is this property is not needed for residential leases. And I have a hard time finding that when we have such a long list of over 8,000 people still waiting for residential or agricultural leases, primarily residential. And so, but yet on the agenda, we can't see what happened to the 3 tracks. We've had oversight hearings and many hearings, and they've actually come in with priorities. These are the 3 tracks that we're going to use, and we're going to break these up into lots. If we can get the infrastructure on, we can double the number of lots on here because we can bring in sewer. And then we can issue the residential leases. Those are the big plans. And so I know I've talked to the acting director again about this, but it really for me is, you know, you're a governing board, so it's led by the board, and when the directors switch, maybe, you know, it's the board that has to now lead the consistency on these things, or just because they're under immense pressure, they're doing the work at the same time, they're also fielding the calls and the visits by other people who, of course, want to use land in your inventory, but we, I think, have to show what you know, that we are making progress on our priority areas as well. And those are, I think you guys did a good job with your strategic plan to outline what needed to be done. And I'm not going to turn this into more questioning about what's the progress of each of these, but that's what you need to be apprised of at every meeting. What is your progress of your commission altogether on these items? We know since 2018 there were lists that were made by the AG. So this is some of the issues that there were existing they found a slew of problems, and they divided everybody up onto lists of voidable but could be ratified by the commission, and now we have a list of those that were ratified by the commission, but even those people were sometimes unable to get these loan guarantees. So it's like since then, even though supposedly solved, brand new problems, brand new areas that they're saying are not in compliance. And so I know that acting director testified earlier in another hearing we had on the cables, submerged cables, and the revenues from that they had a compliance team now that has been set, and several. In fact, they have so many, one compliance team regarding illegal dumping, one compliance team regarding the inventory itself and who's on what parts of the inventory. That's huge. And then a compliance team as to processing those on the waiting list. All of that, to me, you should hear about at your meetings. You should be able to verify. All right. One more question. So do you have any conflicts of interest that you think will affect your ability to serve in this position going forward?
Can I make a statement before we go
Please,
to that?
yes.
Since I've been on board, we have not executed any new commercial leases, okay? Our main task to date has been cleaning up bad commercial leases. And that's why we had the issue with the Guam Raceway, with Global. That's why we're having issue with Global, and we're also looking at Coco and a few other problems that we've been able to filter or discover within the past few months. So our job right now is clean up, and we hope to clean up as soon as possible, but with being very cautious. That way we don't subject CLTC to a suit or GovGuam, and also to protect we the board, because we can be sued for bad decisions or illegal actions taken. I just wanted to add that on because recently it was the medical, Joey, the one up in Didido?
The illegal dumping? Huh? The illegal dumping?
No, they were using CLT property without permission.
Right.
They
storage
infringed into CLTC. They broke down a portion of their back wall and started occupying CLTC property. And these are big businesses. I mean, it seems that the commercial arena out there looks at CLTC as a doormat where they can just wipe their feet on us without any regrets or without any actions taken for their misdeeds. we're working hard at trying to rectify stuff like that. And as far as infusion for monies for our infrastructure projects, we just recently went into a short-term lease with GPA to utilize CLTC property up in Jigu, right next to the power plant that they have up there. And because of that transaction, it infused about $200,000 for a 3-year lease that we can use towards our infrastructure fund. Now going back to your question, please remind me again, refresh my memory.
Conflict, if you have any conflict that will affect your ability to serve on this board going forward. Does your job as a realtor conflict with your duties here?
No, because I can't make a commission of what we do up there.
All right.
But I think the knowledge that I brought in as a realtor is helping to move us along. Case in point, going back to the raceway, when we were forcing the eviction, the president of the raceway went to the local stations and started saying that he's not going to adhere to the eviction, he was going to fight the eviction. So back then, the management went up there to do a lockout, and that was with the guidance of our legal at that time and point. And because of my realtor background, I know you can't just lock out tenants. It's against the law. There's a process you have to adhere to. And management was there with the chain and padlocks, getting ready to lock out. And I was the one that stopped them because we don't need unnecessary stress in our day-to-day operations because of miscommunication or failure. No, I don't think at this point in time that I would have a problem with working diligently with the CLTC. As a matter of fact, I feel like part of me is already embedded with the CLTC. I want to see progress made, and I work closely with the other 2, hopefully 3 board members, and we'll get this thing moving a lot faster. And
Thank you.
not to recognize the efforts that this legislature under your leadership has been helping us to try and overcome some of these hurdles. I just read a recent bill that you are proposing.
The one from the Attorney General? So we've been trying to resolve some of these leases that were stuck since 2018, deemed void or since the Attorney General back then.
Void and null.
And, but even the lawyers for the CLTC have changed, you know, over the years. So it's very hard to get consistent advice or immediate advice. So we've actually put in several different bills. We thought we're going to rectify some of those issues. Some of them had issues at public hearings, and now the Attorney General just sent a new bill that he thinks or suggests that will rectify some of these issues. So I've introduced it. It hasn't had a public hearing yet, but we will entertain that and see if that's truly, but that's something for you to review. That was new, I think, to all of you, even me. Just came straight from the Attorney General one day, kind of out of the blue. So we'll see if that's what the solution is and see if that's what we want to do to move forward. But yeah, so we've been trying several different ones. Not all of, some of them passed, some of them not. We've even got some money bills in the Appropriations Committee still waiting because in lieu of, you know, the controversial leases, if you can use excess funds to get in that water infrastructure for the 166 lots, we can get that 166 lots matched and taken care of, put in the infrastructure, and then we can see some residential leases instead of waiting for all those other contingency plans. And while we're waiting for the submerged cable revenue as well, or following up on additional ones. But All right, Sizus Masi, I'm going to ask Senator Chris Duenas.
Sizus Masi, Madam Speaker, then Sizus Masi loko ili tawdi tauta mamatte patal sporti si Earl Garrido, Senior Garrido, Sizus Masi barahago loko. But if in English, but I see tauta man econo gana hujung, Sizus Masi. Thank you everyone for coming today, and of course to the reappointee, Mr. Garrido, and everyone who came to support Mr. Garrido. You know, I got to concur that I'm going to ask you just a couple questions in terms of priorities. I think that we've seen on the commercial end, you know, you've done your job. All of you, your fiduciary responsibility to review, make recommendations, and take action. Of course, there's a dynamic of the legislature and, you know, what your role is and what you've seen. You've been here to support and not support different proposals in terms of land use. So I think that we have a robust communication with regard to that and the ability to debate and deliberate those issues in concert, whether, as you said, with many of your fellow commissioners, you see eye to eye or don't see eye to eye. That's the beauty of the process, is that debate and deliberation. So I want to drill down more into, I concur with the issues with regard to the license and lessees that, you know, have been waiting for a long time and sorting out what needs sorted out. But first I wanted to ask you, collectively, but of course in your position, do you feel as though to conduct your business as a board that the staff and the you know, the CHamoru Land Trust organization is providing you all the tools and information that you need to execute making these decisions?
Currently, speaking on behalf of the CLTC management, CLTC is severely understaffed, and we lack the funds to be, I'll say operational, where we're effective. We just recently submitted our budget. You know, it's for FY25. We hope it would be approved, but as we know, going through the process, they'll keep chipping away at it, and we won't. We've yet to see what is the final sum that we will be allocated to work with in order to be operational. And when I say operational, so that we can catch up with our backlog and have the necessary funds for the vehicle to register unregistered property that CLTC holds, and that will also take surveying and stuff like that. So it's hard for me to come up with a dollar amount that I think would be functional for the operation of CLTC, but if you're asking me if we need help, yes, both financially and also support for what we need to do to accomplish our mission.
Because I think Mr. Garrido and the rest of the members of the commission members here, and we're going to hear another confirmation, is I think the frustration level at our level and also at the level of the community as expressed by many, and I understand, I was part of it when I was integrated with land management as the director, so I really understand a lot of the complexities in terms of problems that arise, chain of issuances and things like that. But I think the fundamentals here are, you know, as you say, you're in cleanup mode. You can't move if you don't have the right information in front of you. And so I want to drill down just a little bit more before my last question, and that is, do you believe with the help, the structure is there already to get moving on adjudicating all of those leases that have been issued, the prioritization, the numbering, the sequence of issuance, and all those things, if you had the staff support level and could adjudicate decisions at the board level?
No, based on our current situations financially and the available manpower, we cannot effectively run the CLTC without, like I said, the additional staffing and financial help so that we can accomplish our mission. As said earlier, that our board meetings are not simple 1-hour board meetings. On average, they run at least 4 hours. We come in at 1 and sometimes we're not out of there till 7:30. So these are long board meetings, and they're not just on one subject. It's spread out over residential and commercial. And the residential and commercials that we adjudicate during our board meetings are problem leases. They're not clean leases. And the reason why I say problem is there are some instances in the past where unregistered property was leased to a tenant. And the tenants cannot build because the property is not registered. And by law, all property that's leased out by CLTC has to be registered. This was way before our time. This was done in the early growth of CLTC. The last solid board we had under Pika Farron, she was the one that initiated the questions for the raceway. From then on, we have been on a steady track upwards and outwards so that we can clean up and move forward with issuing new leases. I would love to issue new leases, but the one problem that stopped us initially was we called it number 6. And number 6 was a big problem because CLTC operates on date and time. And number 6 came in on the proper date and time, but the designated heir for that lease did not allow for grandchildren, and they assigned the lease to a grandchild. So we couldn't get past that at that point in time. We're trying to get a workaround, which is, I believe, is in process right now, to rectify that date and time so that we're not stuck at number 6. We can't go to number 7 because we have not remediated number 6. If you give us more leeway where we can amend so that we can move forward, it's not only the assigned heirs, but also the date and time is a big issue. A lot of leases were awarded outside of date and time. And a lot of leases were double. There was a lot of inequities, like each tenant is only supposed to have 1 lease. Some tenants have 2 leases. And there's a public law also that kind of ties our hands also. It involves agricultural. And if it's, I believe, more than 2 acres, it has to be considered a commercial lease. And farmers cannot afford a commercial lease of more of the standards that are given to us in our mandates, that it has to be 10% of the appraised value. I mean, if you're going to lease for farming 5 acres, we have to get an appraised value for that property and then charge you on the lease 10% of the value of the appraisal. Good case in point is Raceway. They're crying that they can't afford to pay the lease for that property. Now, the former Raceway was paying, at that point in time, they were paying $4,000 a month. This new Raceway wants to really low cut that $4,000. What they submitted to us was an amount of $1,000 a month, so that's a big drop. And it has infrastructure on site. There's building and it's been developed, and they're going to be paying even less than the Raceway when the Raceway first started paying lease rental. So it's not just one thing. There's quite a few things that are slowing us. And we need to work with you guys, the senators. This is only through you guys can we make substantial changes for us to move forward.
So my last question, and then I just want to make a comment. If given the tools and given what you need, would it be your priority to ensure that this is the main focus? Of course, you have all your other responsibilities. I'm not saying that they would go away. But is this your focus? Because to me, without this focus, this really, we're not doing what we said we wanted to do with this organization. I just want to get it from here because, like I said earlier, I agree with some of the things your positions. I disagree, but that's okay. Because that's the way it's supposed to be. Your board will make a final decision. We'll make our final decisions. But this is what I really want to see. Given the tools, would this be your heart and soul mission to get these things moving, get these subdivisions moving, and get these issuances moving?
With all the proper tools in place, I say yes.
So, Mr. Garrido, I'll work closely with you. I mean, you, like I said, agree, disagree. You have my confidence, and I believe that your heart and your mind is in the right place. And the bottom line is that, we have to ask ourselves a final question as we go into the budget process and into further bringing you folks in to continue having meetings, because at this point in time, what you've explained to me is you're set up for failure right now. And that's just the truth. If you can sit here and tell me that you don't have the tools to do your job and that the staff is doing the best with what it's got, but cannot turn around the mandates that have been put on it to sort out, clean up, and give you good information to make decisions, along with debating cases that come before you and having to adjudicate them based on how the issuance was done, then I will still vote for your confirmation, but I'm going to ask the next member as well and ask the members that are here to say, we can no longer proceed being set up for failure. We have to make it known and make it clear that in order to be true to this program, if we're going to do it with fidelity, it doesn't matter how big a heart and how big a mind and how big an intention, only God can move that mountain, and we are mere mortals. So I will continue to listen to the deliberation. You certainly have my confidence, like I said, going forward. I think that, your heart and your mind is in the right place. Issues of deep concern, I think, are going to be handled both at your level and our level, and we'll shake that all out and see where that goes. But I'm confident, but I wanted to get more you on the record in terms of what you see operationally, because if we're going to hold you commissioners accountable, we have to hold ourselves accountable to, do you have what you need to do your job? Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Canetta.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Earl, for being here today. Really appreciate your time and service. I know you certainly served the island well, and you've also been in the private business helping in the community. With Bill 245-37, it suggests letting applicants swap places on the waiting list during emergency. As a commissioner, how would you define an emergency situation, and what criteria would make sure it's applied fairly and consistently in the classification of an emergency?
You're speaking of residential leases or commercial leases?
Residential.
For an emergency situation, I would say it would have to do with a life or death situation, or next in line would be a bad divorce or sickness in the family. Those are what I would classify as emergencies. I think everything else could be worked out mutually.
Okay, thank you. Considering the worries about the past actions taken without the right legal authority, like the 102 leases that ended up being null and void, what steps are you planning to take to make sure that everything follows the law from now on? And how would you work with legal advisors to avoid similar issues in the future?
Excuse me, Senator, can you speak slower and louder? I'm
My
legally
apologies.
deaf in my right ear, and the
Okay.
hearing is not that hot on the left.
Got you. Considering the worries of the past actions of in CHamoru Land Trust that taking out of right legal authority, right, the 102 leases that ended up being null and void, what steps would you plan to take to make sure that none of that happens again?
The simplest way for me to answer that for you, Senator Kanata, is we adhere to the regulations of the CLTC in awarding leases, and we make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Other than that, the reason we had that many null and voids that were determined by the former AG was because they did not adhere to the rules, and that's what led to those problems. How do we fix it? We have to take it on a case-by-case basis and adjudicate each case based on its own merits and demerits. I'm not in favor of evicting residential leases. If there's a way we can work it out legally, then I will look for that path. And that path will be worked with the tenants. As I said in my presentation or my testimony, the tenants have put their life on the line in developing the properties that they're occupying. They've invested time, money, blood, sweat, and tears, basically, is what I said. I don't feel I'm in a position where I can take that away unless all the circumstances warrant that we have to take that final action. But it would be a last resort.
Thank you. Do you feel that it would be beneficial for CLTC to be an autonomous agency?
Yes, very much so.
Thank you. In the spirit of continuity, do you feel that you guys need your own legal counsel to support your operations and to ensure contingency for the next generations?
Our present assigned legal counsel from the AG's office is very aggressive, and he stands on his recommendations. The prior counsels were not as aggressive. I'm not going to say they were incompetent. They just weren't as aggressive. Prior to Mr. Miller, we had Garrido Matauto, and he was setting a new path for us to take. Unfortunately, he only attended one board meeting, and then he was called to a higher calling.
May he rest in peace. As a current member of the board, do you recall what the pending typhoon cases are regarding Typhoon Mawar? Do you recall do you have a list of cases that are still pending you guys hearing, like Miss Anita?
Well, I can't recall the specific, Mrs. Cruz's specific situation, but a lot of it has to do, like, maybe they built on the property without getting permits. Depending on the situation, maybe there was an infraction of the lease. Maybe the property was not registered. Maybe the property was not surveyed. I can't recall from that particular case, but there are varied reasons why loan guarantees were not being issued yet. We have not turned our backs on them. We continue to try and work and improve the situation, but like I said, I'm not an advocate for outright evictions.
Okay, nothing further, Madam Chair. Again, thank you for your service. I know you can retire peacefully and you don't need to do this, but you choose to step up and continue to serve the community on the island. Thank you again to Ms. Berdalio. You know, your husband has also been a tireless advocate. Mr. Rera, Mr. Laguatnia, I know you're not a Chamorro Land Trust, but you're part of all the land issues, right, Mr. Laguatnia? And Joey, keep up the good work.
This is Masi, Senator Kanata. Senator Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and certainly good afternoon to you, Mr. Garrido, for those that have come here this afternoon to provide your testimony. You know, it doesn't seem that long ago we had your last confirmation hearing, and time, 18 months goes by very quickly. I appreciate your interest in wanting to continue to serve, because you certainly have had the opportunity to see all the challenges, and the challenges are quite significant with regards to the operations of the Chamorro Land Trust. And I appreciate you responding certainly to the questions of my colleagues. But one thing I do want to ask, and I see that this is a tremendous weakness of the land trust, is the ability to enforce its regulations. There's one testimony here that's brought forth that had relayed that there was an individual that perhaps was not qualified to receive land trust land that may have received land trust land, and is raising the concern that you know, you have taken no action with regards, or not supporting any action with regards to enforcement of that. And you did relay about, you know, your concerns about removing someone from their residential property. But I think the challenge that the land trust has, because people don't fear the land trust, they don't believe you're going to follow through, there's been excessive, you know, abuse. All the years leading up to where we are today, and I was there since the time, you know, Angel Santos was down at Adelup protesting, to the time he was on the floor of the legislature before he was elected, with members of Nation Chamorro, you know, really rioting almost, to the point of, I recall, former Speaker San Augustine literally, physically almost being accosted on the floor of the legislature for the implementation of Chamorro Land Trust. Since that time, because there has been so much flagrant abuse, outside the land trust coming in, within the land trust itself, members of the staff and those that were making decisions were ensuring that they themselves, their family, were receiving lots. There are individuals, when politics rears its ugly head, and we all see that. When it comes to money and land, the amount of abuse I see is very concerning. And it's our own people sometimes who have abused that. But when the land trust itself does not enforce these requirements, that abuse continues. And so how do you address that? I mean, even if someone may have built on a Chamorro Land Trust property, but they were not entitled, for example, or they are not meeting the requirements of land trust, how do you address that? Because there are thousands of Chamorros being born today that will never in their lifetime ever have the opportunity to occupy land trust property, not to plant a coconut tree or a tangerine tree or whatever the case may be. And then you have those that have abused the privilege and the land trust does not enforce. How do you address that?
First of all, we have not evicted anyone without cause. The only eviction that we formalized was the raceway. Now, in regards to this case that you're referring to, can I ask if that's in reference to the Ahmed farm?
It may be. It doesn't say that in particular. I'm assuming that's the case.
Well, if it's in regards to the Ahmed farm, the recipient circumvented her qualifications for being a tenant, and that's why I put two general classifications of unlawful and irregular leases. That person was not entitled to be the recipient of a CLTC lease. But that person also made a claim that she has roots from Guam, and her grandfather lived on Guam, but then moved the family. She wasn't born, of course, at that time, because this was the early 1900s. They moved from Guam to Saipan. There's records of them leaving Guam on a ship, going to Saipan, but not coming back. Now, under CLTC rules and regulations, if you were denied usage of property by either the local or federal government, then that would allow you to qualify or to be an applicant for CHamoru Land Trust property. And when we ran out the available recourse we could refer, she claimed to have had property up in Anderson Air Force Base. So we put her to task to show us proof of that claim. Now, if she's able to show us that there was a deed that her father had or grandfather had up in Anderson Air Force Base, then she would qualify on that point. So this is a work in progress. We have not taken any drastic move on it. We've been working with the tenant to try and rectify the situation according to law. Okay? And the reason why she didn't qualify at first is because she was born in Saipan. So she was not a U.S. citizen at the time she applied.
Well, I know there is a defined definition of those who are eligible. There are also those that may be non-Chamorro of non-Chamorro heritage, but if they were here in 1950 and they became citizens as a result of that. Yes,
that is also one consideration.
I mean, the framework is there. I'm not bringing this up as a personal issue. There was a testimony provided today. That's why I'm inquiring of you, because this is one circumstance. There may be others and other reasons why someone may be occupying the property. They may be eligible, but are they using the property for its intended purpose? We know the list is long of abuse of land trust property. You have some that acquire the property and are subleasing it to others. They don't live there, but they lease it out to others. You have a long list also to deal with of commercial property that is being used, and I'm sure you're aware of some, and as time goes on, you find other properties that are being used that are not being compensated, which is the other major problem. The major problem is making the revenue, and the design was to ensure that the commercial properties would be put in place so that the land trust could receive its revenue. And for whatever reason, there's been inconsistency with that as well. Where in the case we talked previously about the golf course up in Dedido, I mean, when I was working with the land trust when I was up at the University of Guam, and we had an agreement with the CHamoru Land Trust to assist in doing inspections of properties. We did that for the agricultural leases. And then we also were asked initially to start looking at the commercial leases. And when we see the top debtors to the land trust years later are still at the top of the list, why is that? Why is there not a timeline that within, X amount of days or months, be it 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, there should be a very formal process set by the land trust that if you don't pay by this time frame, then we are going to take the property back. What I see is because the connection to the connection to the connection, I see agreements coming back and saying, oh, we haven't for X, list of reasons not been able to develop the property, therefore we've not been able to get revenue for the property, therefore can we not have to pay until we actually build what we said we were going to build in the first place? Why does that become the burden of the land trust and those that are recipients? Why is it simply, that's not my issue if and when you build or whether you receive income or not? We have a land lease agreement. You have an obligation to pay this amount from day one, not 5 years later, because the connect to the connect to the connect happens to be connected to very influential people in this community. And they get away with a lot. Some of them do because of who they know. And then the land trust says, oh, okay. And then the land trust is out the money. And yet when you look at the average person out there who simply wants to build a home for their family to live in, for their own safety and security, or someone who says, I want to go farm and I want to grow food for my family. I want to grow my coconut tree, my lemonchina tree, and my choti tree, and have that either for my own consumption or, hey, say if I make a little bit, I give to my friends and neighbors, or maybe I want to do it for commercial purposes so I can make additional income. We don't get there because some of the big players that hold your land are not properly compensating. And what is your view to deal with that? Because as I see it, and I've worked for a regulatory agency in the government of Guam who has tremendous authority, if you blink first, they're going to let you blink, and they're just not going to follow through. They will send their nice high-powered attorneys, and they'll try and intimidate. And you're out that.
What we are currently working on, we're investigating, and we're not on the halfway point in our investigation. We're still in the beginning stages of the investigation of a property that has been used by a private company for at least the past 10 years. We never issued a license to them. We never issued a permit to them. They were placed there on the property by another CLTC contract. Not directly from CLT, but we contracted with a salvage company, and he subcontracted with this company and placed them on CLTC property. Commissioner Herrera had mentioned that in his brief, in his testimony. We are currently looking at that. I've done 2 site visits to investigate, and CLT continues to do site visits to investigate and has engaged EPA to join in the investigation because it's a salvage recovery type of business, without having to name the business. But when I was there, I noticed a lot of transformer oil leakage onto the property. And this property is up north, so it's over the aquifer. So that's why we informed EPA to come out and do an investigation on it based on what we see on the surface. But we don't have a lease with them. They've not paid any rental. And we just found that out just on or about the same time that we discovered the activities at the raceway. So we're working on that, Senator, and we've yet to determine what course of action we're going to take on it, but we're in full investigation mode. It doesn't look too good for them because they really don't have a reason or excuse why they're there, and they know that they're using government property, but yet they know that they're not paying anything for it. So like you said, or like I said earlier in my testimony, that a lot of these private companies view us as a doormat, and they just rub their feet on us thinking that they can, like you say, they can get away with it without any recourse.
Well, I just think the land trust needs to be far more aggressive. I mean, if you're the landlord, if that was your own personal private property, I don't know that anyone would take it as casual.
Oh,
And then also with regards to those that do have formal agreements, I think the land trust must be a lot more aggressive in ensuring that they pay in a timely fashion. If they don't, then they don't. You end the lease. And I don't understand why that's so complicated. If they don't think you're going to take action, they will continue to abuse your hospitality. And that's what's happened for many years. And as a result, the land trust is not receiving revenue that it should be receiving. Another most recent controversy came up just a couple of legislative sessions ago with regards to the old Hospital Point property and the amount of land that was handed over or signed over by your acting executive director with regards to the construction of the burial site for our ancient Chamorro remains. And we were a little concerned with what the original law authorized, 5 acres or less, and how that got multiplied to 14 acres. Did the Land Trust Commission, did you ever take action with regards to that decision? Because we're a little concerned. I mean, there's already enough abuse that has existed in the last 20 plus years that will take many years into the future to correct or address. We certainly want to ensure moving forward that we're not creating other circumstances, because we're concerned on how easily the land trust could hand over an additional 9 acres without reservation of prime property, probably one of the most valuable pieces of property in the entire land trust inventory. Did that matter go before the commission? Did you vote on it? Did you concur on it? Because we're a little concerned about that. At least a number of us are here in this side of the aisle.
In that regards to that particular situation that you're speaking of, the Sapling Point,
Yes.
we had no input on that. We had no knowledge of the land growing. You know, public law designated, 2 to 5 acres? And then suddenly it was running out to 14 acres? We were not a party to that.
And so what action are you going to take, since you're acting executive director, who I know has overall been doing a fairly good job for the commission?
Well,
But what authority did he have to sign that, and what action are you going to take to get that land on paper returned? I can't imagine buying 1 acre of land at Oka Point. What would that cost me? What would that cost you? But that's something that recently happened, and I hope our speaker as the oversight chair does hold a hearing on that, because that is very concerning. And the explanation we have, and I have a lot of respect for Joe Borja, I've known him a long time, but the explanations that were given us, on the floor of that legislature not too long ago really had me shaking my head a bit, because if I'm just going to allow my architect to go out there and feel the area and tell me, and even though we definitely had a very qualified architect design this project, who, thank goodness for the speaker, following up on her own records and her email communications to verify what the intent of the architect was, because we were being sold a bag of goods that, the architect, it's the reason we got 14 acres. The architect needed a buffer. He needed another 9 acres. And then the other explanation we got, the surveyor. The surveyor went out and determined this is what we need. And I'm thinking, when does the architect and the surveyor get to decide those things? As if land is limitless, because regardless, be it a hospital or whatever ultimately the future intentions are of that property, I think you want to maximize your ability to use it for other purposes, not any disrespect to our ancient remains, but we can't make that a means of pretty much removing the ability of the land trust to generate revenue in the future that could be very valuable to your recipients.
I agree with you, Senator, but we were not a party to that.
Well, it happened
that
during
motion.
your tenure, sir, while you were serving on the Land Trust Commission.
Yes,
so
but
I think we're going to want to know publicly at some point what, if any, action you're going to take to have that corrected.
We didn't take any action on that because we were not made aware of it until it hit the news.
Now that you're aware of it, what action are you going to take, since you're acting executive director, handed over an additional 9 acres that should never have been given out of the Land Trust inventory?
Well, I would have to review the file, Senator.
I hope you do. I hope we see progressive action with regards
But we're
to
not
that.
we're not in the business of giving away property.
Well, then there's an internal issue, obviously, because for your executive director acting, whatever the case may be, being empowered with that, to sign off that property, and you're telling me on the board you were not informed about it or not aware about it, that's very concerning.
Yes, the board was not informed.
I hope you put that on your agenda and take action, appropriate action. We just can't, this could be any lot. That just happens to be a matter that was brought before us, and we happen to be aware of it as a result. But the fact that it happened at all is very concerning.
It will be a point of discussion in our.
And I hope corrective actions taken with regards to that. One other question. I know I'm belaboring this, Madam Speaker, but a lot of issues to deal with. I understand from one of my colleagues that there may have been a previous action of land trust officials giving recipients property that's sitting on federal land. And these individuals may have built their homes and have been living there for a number of years, but now can't even get basic utilities because they can't demonstrate that they have a proper lease with the CHamoru Land Trust, because the land does not belong to the CHamoru Land Trust to begin with. I mean, that's how messed up. I don't know any other nicer word to use without using an expletive, that this situation has been. I mean, it's one thing that we're still looking at serving, other properties to be able to hand out, but we've had properties that have been handed out that don't even belong to the land trust, and you're wondering, Hoffa, Messiah, we just go out there and put, there's your lot, there's your lot, there's your lot, unsurveyed and not determining, do we even own the land? And, hope and pray maybe that some official action can happen, at a higher level to have these lands transferred. I don't know what the solution is for people that have invested their lives, their home, what money they may have. And granted, we know most of these homes probably built on the land trust don't even meet the building code requirements. People just got what resources they had to put a roof over the head, and that's what they did. But that's home. Could be a tent, but that's your home. What action do we do moving forward to make sure that that doesn't happen? Because now there's, it's a bag of worms on how's the land trust going to address this. If you're handing out land that doesn't even belong to you in the first place and people are banking on that, they've been living there, and then to find out they can't get basic utility hookup because they have no formal agreement because the land trust doesn't even own the property.
Senator, those examples that you're giving about federal properties being issued to CLTC tenants, I do not believe that happened under this board's watch. It was previous boards.
I understand, but those families, they're going to
Yes,
come back and
yes.
say, hey, so-and-so official
And I
took me out here and told me point A to point B, that's where my land is, and that's where I built my home on that information.
I sympathize with the families because they're caught in a catch-22 type of situation. And like I said earlier in my testimony, these people have put in their hearts and their souls into those properties to develop it for either a home or for a farm. And before I tell them to get out, I want to make sure that everything, all the investigations are completed before we make a final determination. If it's something we can fix, because if it's, let's say, unregistered land that they're on, we can register the land, okay? That would be a work in progress. But for federal land, it depends on how much improvement to the property was done. I would say if it's through no fault of their own and it's a previous CLTC management, then our only other alternative for that is to buy them out, to compensate them for their expense and their time while occupying that land that they shouldn't have been on in the first place. That brings to mind that we need to emphasize that surveys of CLTC land should be one of our priorities, because we should not be issuing out land to people on unregistered property, because by law we're not supposed to do that.
Well, I appreciate your input, Mr. Garrido. You have a very tough job, but I think, a lot of the concerns that we're questioning and relating to, I'm sure you're aware of. I think the challenge here now is just what do you do in your time to make that shift? Because if it's as recent as a month ago with the signing over of Oka Point land.
Excuse me, Senator, but this is done out of compassion and love for the Chamorro people and for Guam. Come on, Senator, our board meetings are at least 4 hours long, $50 a meeting? Is it really worth it?
No, I mean, we can ask ourselves in public service whether what we're doing is.
Totally
I think
agree.
we
It's
all
not
ask
worth
ourselves that
it.
question.
We're putting in more time and effort than that dollar would accrue on the open market.
But you have the authority to ensure you hire staff, you have the authority to ensure you receive the revenue you need to operate. Yeah. Those are the things that you're empowered with.
It would also help if part of that revenue to operate would include our own CLTC attorney.
That's something you can help address.
Yes.
Because you are going to have members of this legislature now and in the future that are going to carve out the land trust and extract, as they do with bills, to dictate what the Chamorro Land Trust does. And if you don't build up your independence, your ability to perform, and your credibility, you're going to continue, and as we all are, you're going to see that land continue to whittle away, the prime properties to whittle away. Because you have vested interests out there, they're going to continue to see how they can get their hands on it, or if they have their hands on it, how they're going to keep it. The credibility is really something that needs to be worked on, and I hope the most recent situation is corrected as soon as possible, because it really puts a black cloud, a very dark cloud over the land trust to not only see the history of injustices that have happened and have occurred within the land trust, but misdeeds that are happening today that are very concerning.
That is our first and foremost goal, is to try and clean up as quickly and as quickly as possible.
Well, and I hope you start putting timelines on that and ensuring you're collecting on your commercial leases. And this particular issue with Oka Point, or EPAL Point now to correct it, EPAL Point needs to be corrected soon. We would definitely want to see action on that, because if your acting executive director is off signing off land that has not even gone through your review, I think we all got a big problem with that. But thank you, Mr. Garrido. I understand it has to be a labor of love, because this is a lot to deal with. But there's a lot of hope, and you know, we encourage you to really take the action you need. You need to be firm, and you need to ensure that, you know, you're going to follow through, and that the land trust is going to follow through. If they don't, the abuse will continue. And I don't think any of us want to see that.
Just as a point in closing, the minimum wage almost exceeds what we make if we divide up the hours versus the amount of our stipend.
I think if you have your staff prepared to give you proper information, I don't think you need, you know, long meetings that you have.
I'm here because of my dedication and my service to the people.
I appreciate that. I think we all do.
But I do believe that the CLT management, which is our director, and the staff, needs to be reevaluated and needs to be brought up to current standards for their salary.
Those are the decisions you need to make and advocate for. That's something you can do on your side of the aisle. Mm-hmm. But thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to ask these questions and comments.
Masi, Senator Brown. Minority Leader, Senator Blas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Mr. Garrido, thank you very much for wanting to step up. You know, Earl, I've known you for a long time, and you know, I can truly say that I appreciate that you were never one to sugarcoat anything, and while there are times that we agree to disagree, and we agree and we disagree to agree, you know, there was always you never were too quick to provide an answer. You wanted to take a step back and listen and digest, you know, what was being said, and I appreciate that about this. Just listening to the line of questioning that was directed towards you, and knowing your love for, like my colleague you know, from Tumuning here, your love for being on a boat instead of a meeting for quite some time. What drives you? What drives you to want to be a member again, to continue? You can easily step back and away from this and say, find me on my boat, you know, and I'm going to go fishing if you want to get something from me. But what's driving you to want to come back into the commission?
Senator Blas, I'm sitting here requesting for your approval on my nomination because for 32 years I was a servant of the government. Okay, the government provided me my living and the opportunities that I had to go through the ranks, to grow through the ranks. I retired after 32 years of service with Guam Power Authority. Now, the boat is my passion for enjoyment. It's freedom out there for me. Nobody bothers me out there. Maybe the sharks do, but other than that, nobody's out there to bother me. It's not like driving down Marine Drive where everything's so congested. I can plot a course and get away from everyone. I can go 50 miles offshore, and it's very peaceful, very calming. Now, why am I here? Because the government of Guam has given me so much during my career. I feel that it's about time that I start paying back, giving back to Guam and its people. That's why I'm here. It's not a dollar amount. It's not anything that is attracting me to become a commissioner. I feel that I just started a job just very short time ago, very recently. I want to see it through, not to its entirety, but at least I want to make a mark in what I do and how I do it. I don't know how much time I have left on this earth, but I want to work and see what I can do if I'm able to. That's why, Senator.
I appreciate the answer, and I tell you what, I applaud you for your passion and your bravery, for lack of a better term, because I know this is, you know, with Auntie Arlene sitting right next to you, this is not a very easy commission to fill, okay? And with a lot of the information, a lot of the, for lack of a better term, the controversies and the issues and the problems that you got to deal with. You know, I want to thank you for stepping up. And I think that for the most part, you know, a lot of the questions that come to my mind with regards to the operations of the commission have already been asked and answered. So, you know, we want to give you the tools and give you the opportunity to be able to continue to serve. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Senator Blas. I just want to clarify for those who are listening that we have several sections of leases that are like, some that are not in compliance because they're not utilizing it in the way they're supposed to. That's like right now, they've got illegal dumping or they aren't using it the way that they promised to do. We also have at least 102 leases that are void because legal determined that based on other criteria as you described. And we've had issues to resolve those because there's different what the violation is. Some is not registered, some is jumped in the line, some is other things. But the problem with a lot of those is that they actually have leases and buildings. And so the commission has tried not to evict while they come up with a policy. And in that interim, we've seen different lawyers, different legal opinions, different bills, in fact, language of how we should resolve this. And we're still at that today. I have different language from one director that was recommended to me. I introduced it. We have another bill now from the AG saying this is the way to do it. So we have to resolve these complex legal issues. Same thing with these commercial leases. We have complex, sometimes, some of those legal issues versus just not paying, simple, right? And so that's where we're looking to you. And the staffing, I think I had a discussion with the acting director recently that we had put in additional funds. So the legislature, my colleagues had put in additional funds for additional staffing from general funds. And they're just now getting to this additional hiring. So hopefully we'll see that soon. It's taken a while, but we are still funding the CLTC from general fund. But we have very promising revenue that had been put in place in the last few years through bills, these revenue sources, right? First of all, the USDA for infrastructure, sewer and water, the submerged cables to be used again for infrastructure and surveying and registrations. And of course, direct with GWA or your applicants to apply to GWA for assistance that we've also funded. They have programs to assist customers who need assistance to hook up. And of course, the commercial leases. Now that's, of course, where we are relying on you to be aggressive as possible and that with your lawyers. Some of them, I know you need lawyers, so I'm glad some of my colleagues brought that up as well. All right. So I want to thank you for your testimony and all of you for your testimony today on Mr. Earl Garrido's confirmation and wish you the best.
Thank you, Senators. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
We'll continue to receive testimony for Mr. Garrido until the close of business tomorrow, which is August 13, 2024 at 5 p.m. You can send it to Senator Terlaje Guam at gmail.com or deliver it here to the Guam Congress Building. All right, and we'll now hear from the other, or discuss the other nominee, Mr. Jeffrey John Ibanez. Thank you all for your patience. So Mr. Ibanez, if you could please come to the middle chair, and all those who want to testify on his behalf, please come to the table, including representatives from the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. Commissioners, if you would like to testify, or anyone else who would like to testify on behalf of Mr. Ibanez. So Mr. Ibanez, Jeffrey John Ibanez, was nominated to serve as a member of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission for a term of 3 years to fill the unexpired term of John Reyes, which runs from April 11, 2023 to April 10, 2026. And this committee has received written testimony in advance of the hearing from Linda Ibanez, Deputy Director, DPW, Carmen Fernandez, I believe this is the former senator, and Mr. Manuel P. Duenas II from the Farmers Co-op, Mr. Bob Pelkey from YMLG, Mr. John Reyes Jr., who is the former CLTC chairperson, Attorney Mickey Flynn, Dwayne Paul and Lisa Ibanez. All right, so for those who would like to testify, I know we have our acting director again, Mr. Joey Cruz. Anyone else who would like to testify on his behalf? Please come. Attorney Rapadas, you're welcome if you'd like. I know we have your written testimony. Anyone else would like to give oral testimony? Please have a seat if you would like to. Mr. Herrera, would you like to? Yeah, please. Mr. Taitano, you're signed up just in support? Okay. We have, and I read the list of written testimony that we have received, and okay, so now we'll proceed. I'll proceed with the chairperson of the CLTC, Ms. Arlene Berdalio. Mrs. Arlene Berdalio.
Good afternoon, Speaker, Terlaje, and other senators, Duenas, Blas, Kinata, Brown. Thank you for allowing me to testify. Mr. Jeffrey John Ibanez, appointment to serve as a member of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. I don't know Mr. Ibanez personally, but any person willing to serve on this board, I welcome. Governor Lou Leon Guerrero's appointment to this board, I trust her judgment and recommendation. I've known the governor since as far back as 1968. Also, I asked her to run for governor when she was a senator. That's how much trust I have on her. I trust her judgment.
Sizus Masi.
Thank you.
Mrs. Arlene Berdalio, chairperson, CHamoru Land Trust Commission. Other commissioners? Commissioner Herrera.
Buenas tardes, Madam Speakers and todo y senadores and senadora. Inaanu si David Babauta Herrera, Commissioner Zut Lokwik i CHamoru Land Trust Commission za Malago Zut na parabe hu menta si Madam Chair ni pudi leknya na maadzik si John Ibanez na para uangoku i man oodin. Bezezi lekta ni man oodin ni magahaga. Kasi guaut no tiu tungu si John, no tiu matungit permit braya za loestian mali dos tautau no guana braya na espiritu, no guana espiritu no domanya za tsumilong guana braya na espiritu kalan umakontra kalan ni magnitus tino ni electa no negative and negative would oppose, negative and positive would attract. Gifino English no lo be fino samora sa pudi inangokun samoru. Fes no tiu tungu si Senyor John utaitaya i anfa mapasalista gi ane manaplika za ma mentana fanan ginin mo electricity no na makinista stamba za electronic technician ileleku no na stamba experience-nya después es una kwa fatay manu no kan gi bangku lo polo sa molik necesita banquero gi land trust no za tana set biza zangin sinya azu dai inangokun tanu ni pero fanyusu 11,000 hectares na inventorio i land trust 11,000 acres za magahit na zangin guaha banker gi sina tana fanyaguzi i 11,000 no senyor na hectare za tatanum za tanazi hanum za tana fandoko na simiza zo fang za guaganon siya no sinya mamanit no tubun taki pa tubun hanum zanta sazi gumatnya imanyi lutan imanyat saga azigi na oddin udenta gininas no sinot po budazu ezu na oddin ilelengya na ma tsuli itanu gini ni federal no za importante na por favor tabirai tati za tataytay of taymanu i man natibo na Chamorro ni man stabag wam man mamolika itsamuruta después na matuzi batkun Spanyol no si Ferdinand Magellan matuza sige songi lansuni natibo no lekta ofestina sige songi za manggagaw hanum manggagaw boka después na patsafanani manainata pesta aluk na ani monazan si Magellan kana 600 anos sumaga gwini umatulay ka tonu i Spanyol za ni federal i sindalu ni naval government siya sumogwin maisa siya manaatulay ka ni tanu i natibo ti man mazadzao ko man malagwam zo man sududano na Amerikano ko malagwam zo man sududano Hapones pat malagwam zo man sududano Hamza independente no festa aluk na gi 1898 humalumi batku si Leary finena no kalantigov zanya sumaga gwini gi palazzo yotrubanda tunga no si palazzo yotrubanda za sige munea itanu sige na mamidi sige tax may dura tax itanu i zonya land management ni gobernamento ni sindalo ni navy imanay nata ni timagof comprende man manapasi ni NA tax put sa petan oru ma nasesetbi pumapasi land tax tabagi Espanyol zani man halumi Amerikano matulay kahit sa peta igo coin leleku ma nasesetbi pumapasi land tax matulay ka para i salapi i apaka ipapit no manu mas sinyan no la zangin dagaw i oru undagaw ipapit yalum guafi zon suli i atsu atupak zon songi manu mon la i oru sina lagu i papit sina kumason lo itanut Chamorro nyunayan no mafnas pesaja para be tingwangi stitsilu na itanu man Chamorro nyunayan no mafnas data protehi dan sina man manyudait haga pat nilala ta kontra mungay man maonyo ta fanatsu sa man stabag gini gwilota distipago manggagagyaid makefuna si lingwahita jati makumpli no selos ti makumpli mafunas i lingwahita ihila na nota la lo bula ma utut hila nia guapa guna ni pero fan finut Chamorro ti man malago sa man mamahlo pat sino makapun ni hila nia lo maila zata na la itanu zata tanu mi man Chamorro zo sigi dumangkulu i tautauta. Sa esta staba 100% na CHamoru man staba gwini, no? Esta pagu 45%. Esta taman kala ni Hapunesit pagu. Amin i Kanaka, i Hawaiian esta manaigwi na timakuntrotro i Tanunia. Anun ata ni legislatura gi Kanaka, pura Hapunes dan no tauto natibo. Esta Kanaka manaigwi, mangaigi gi kontun tasi pad gi kontun sabana. Zamungay lang, man mamay Kanaka, put favor, tafanatsu za tapandanya, sa tana dongklu i rasota sa ti na mamahlaw si Zusa pegay gwini. Za ni manay nata man lola, za malat za ta continua fes. I testimonio para be no favor za be accepta si luta si John Ibanez para i komisyon na no puesto. Dongklu na si Zeus Masi.
Si Zeus Masi, Commissioner Herrera. Mr. Garrido, did you want to testify for this appointment? Commissioner Garrido.
It's going to be a very short testimony on my behalf.
Okay, well, you were the first one signed up. Please proceed.
I just met this gentleman today out in the waiting room before the meeting. I do support his nomination because that will increase the number of directors at CLTC. Right now, as it stands, there's 3 members. We have our chair and then 2 members. So if I disagree with Commissioner Herrera and something, we're at an impasse, and then the chairperson will have to come in and vote. So now with a 3rd actual member into the CHamoru Land Trust Board, we have a different viewpoint and a different opinion. So if the 2 side against me, then they rule. If he sides with me, then we overrule Commissioner Herrera. So I do stand in support of his nomination and for his confirmation as a 3rd member of the board.
4 members, well, 3 plus 1 chair, you're saying. Okay.
I'm only counting the 3 members that are voting.
All right. And Mr. Cruz, Acting Director of the CLTC.
Good afternoon, Speaker. My name is Joey Cruz. Good afternoon, Senator Duenas, Senator Blas, Senator Canatan, Senator Brown. I too myself don't personally know Mr. Ibanez, nor have I had the opportunity to work with Mr. Ibanez. Although after reviewing his appointment packet, Mr. Ibanez has extensive banking experience and accomplishments. Coupled with his educational accomplishments, Mr. Ibanez will add value to CLTC. I'm in full support of his appointment.
Jesus Masi, Acting Director. Attorney Rapadas.
Yeah, my name is Danilo Rapadas. I'm the General Counsel, Chief Risk Officer of Bank of Guam and Bank Guam Holding Company. And I've worked with John Ibanez for over 30 years. And I have submitted some written testimony. A lot of what I guess I wanted to say is in there. But I think the most important thing is, and I think what was said earlier about his experience in banking. So he has worked, him and I have worked directly under an audit. He was the General Auditor of Bank of Guam. And he's also a compliance officer. And in that regard, he is well equipped with the skills necessary to document and follow up and hound issues that are out there, especially with Bank of Guam. We're a highly regulated institution. And a lot of those regulations are very meticulous in terms of how they're interpreted and how we apply them in the bank. And I think, especially I looked at him after the first hour of the hearing, and he said, "You still want me to go ahead and submit my letter?" He wholeheartedly said yes. So I said, yes, I will do that. And I think from what I heard this morning, or what, 5 hours ago? No, the last hour, I think that he will definitely add value to this board. And I think with you, Senator Brown, that issue will follow up. If I needed something done in the bank, my staff back there will know. I give it to John, he'll get it done. Thank you.
Jesus Masi, Attorney Rapadas. Senor Leguanya.
Jesus Masi talo Senhora Guerrero. Bonito na cuentos talo. Si Ronald Laguanya zo, jagin in espiritu ni manenata talo. Jawa na babementi, Senadora Joanne Brown, enagi magay, sendin ancha, penasiguro magay, na estisia na tatagis o matsogi. Mauli na ginin malalagnos ginin ni patsot mo, sa tahuhungok gimin nagahin, hafa ni sita tatsogi, sa ni sita matsonik za matsogi. So matsonik idinansi za ni diretso. Parewa loki jan tori pemalo na senador ganaulo, senadora, tunga na manggagi kita hamzu, ginasgas dan iminole. Gagi tu gini pabe fana mismo si celuta si John. Utunga si John no tungo lo titungo na Jeffrey nanya lo si tatanya, tatamu no ju sinyo no, manahame si tatanya ginasion CHamoru. Jan yo facing gi le kukumu kita tamu zo pues be angokwa. Señor, por favor, penayam zu ejemplo. Mungan eji para eji ma adgoja, tunga ji karabao, jani waka, ni manoji ni aniju gini. Ada ya no. Mungan eji para angge mahalla gi, eni ge watu. Mahalla watu gi, eno watu. Por favor, celo. Mungama at goza, mungama na sebino, usa gini ni hinengi ni manainata, sogi iminaulik celo. Tatiji estisia sa ho populan estisia lokwi, de sempre populan no lokwi. Lo por favor celo untunga i puntu gini usasangan na adahi i politika na banda. Sa umbis guau, uhungu kena siya. Masosojuju todo tagini lo leko na para gano sa enigi iminalago imanainata na tatsogi idinansi. Por favor, celo, pues gineneno ko conforme na para un tsogi dinansi, como sangan neno mona gini ni spiritu ni manainata, opifan pago sa maata na pago ni man i publiko. Ungan eje para mat goza eza opio. Pues bueno. Pues gini netsu na siguro celo edzigi na babeso poteo za hasu loki si tatamu lai edzigi fio aso edzigi no faise no sa fiwa tatati hatatiti jam edzi tatamu za gini neno iminagofu igwina edzako ni mantau ta mampus didu kisinenteku para ta-ajuda, za ta-protehi, itano, jan ta-ajuda e mantau-tauta. Pes ganyan celo, usupot yaw. Za udisesya loki ni Hamzu, Hamzu pago lamun no, kobla. Lo edzigi, bonito kentos mo, senyora. Unga magay, zabay, tatijis ti siya mona, zo matsogi, zo matsonik, zo managasgas ezi, todiji malofan, linati. Si Diyos masi.
Jesus Masi. Now for the nominee, Mr. Jeffrey John Ibanez. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Taitino. Would you like to testify? Please come. Mr. Taitino.
Hi, good afternoon again, Madam Speaker, Senator Joanne, Senator Chris, Senator Frank, and Senator Kanata. Thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to testify for this fine young man. I've known him since Toto Church. His family used to come in and they stood out like a staircase. You know, his oldest sister all the way down to the dinga. I never knew his name was John though. I mean, Jeffrey. In fact, when I responded to his email, I said, hey Jess, don't worry, I'll be there. I think the other thing that I should call to your attention is the fact that in addition to his father being on the CHamoru group, John also served with the Young Men's League of Guam He was a member during the height of the pandemic, and that was the time that he would attend those meetings via Zoom. It was very hard to get the Young Men's League of Guam to attend a meeting, much less to attend a meeting electronically. So it's because of that too, John, that I said, hey, this guy's heart is in the right place. And I have every bit of confidence that you will do what the laws of Guam, and most especially what your heart tells you, is most beneficial to the people of Guam. As an auditor at the Bank of Guam, I too, being with a financial institution, I won't mention, but we rely heavily on our auditors. If anybody can provide to you the confidence that these individuals can and take it to the bank, you can with this type of individual. So my hat is off to you. And once again, as I said back there, before you walked up to the table, you still have time. But deep in my heart, I know that you'll be guided by God and that you will make the right decisions that are necessary, most especially because we have a lot of young men and women or babies being born, and there's going to be nothing for them if we continue to just recklessly give it away. So I truly support Mr. Jeffrey John Ibanez's appointment here to this commission, Madam Speaker, and members of the legislature. Sizus Masi.
Sizus Masi, Mr. Taitsuno. And now for our nominee, Mr. Jeffrey John Ibanez.
Before we begin, I want to thank, yes, my name is Jeffrey John. I go by Jeffrey John because I have a dingat. His name is also Jeffrey Joe. So, nobody knows the legal name, but that's the legal name. Hafade Honorable Senators, distinguished members of the committee, and esteemed guests. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. It is a great honor, humanity, and a privilege that I stand before you today as a nominee for the board of CHamoru Land Trust Commission. I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to address the distinguished body and share my visions and commitment to the sacred trust we hold for the beneficiaries, the Chamorro people. I am deeply committed to the mission of the trust and the preservation and responsible management of our lands that we also hold dear to our beneficiaries. My name is Jeffrey John. I go by J. John P. Ibanez, and I have the privilege of working in the financial industry as a VP Compliance Officer with the Bank of Guam. I've been with the Bank of Guam for 30 years. I've gained extensive experience in compliance, auditing, banking, financial risk, analysis management, strategic planning, quality audit, accounting, business management, community engagement, customer service, and internal controls. Throughout my career, I have dedicated to serving the people of Guam. I am passionate about ensuring that the Chamorro people retain and benefit from their lands. My background in the financial industry provides a strong foundation for this role. With extensive experience in the financial management, risk assessment, and strategic planning, I bring a wealth of knowledge that will be invaluable to the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. My extensive in banking and finance will ensure that we manage our resources effectively, maintaining fiscal responsibility, and maximize the benefits of our beneficiaries. Understanding the historic and cultural significance of our lands is at the core of my commitment. The Chamorro Land Trust Commission plays a crucial role in protecting and managing these lands, ensuring that they are used in the way that honor our heritage while supporting sustainable development and community needs. The Chamorro Land Trust represents more than just an administrative entity. It's a beacon of hope, a resilience, and a cultural preservation for our people. It stands as a testament to our collective efforts to restore and protect the ancestral lands that are integral to our identity, our history, and our future. The lands that we hold in trust is not merely a resource, it's the foundation of our heritage. It carries the stories of our ancestors, the wisdom of our tradition, and the spirit of our community. As we gather here today, we are reminded of the profound responsibility we have to honor this legacy and ensure that it continues to thrive for generations to come. In addressing the challenges that we face, I am committed to prioritizing the fair and transparent allocation of lands to our eligible beneficiaries. I recognize the importance of streamlining our process to reduce delays and ensure that our people can access their rightful heritage without undue hardship. My aim is to implement a clear and efficient application process supported by digital tools that enhance accessibility and transparency. Sustainable land management is another cornerstone of my vision. We must balance the need of development with the imperative to protect our environment and cultural sites, whereby adopting sustainable practices, we can ensure that our lands are used in a way that benefit both our community and beneficiary. Moreover, my volunteer time and commitment to community service reflect my dedication to this role. I understand the importance of putting in the long hours and the effort required to serve our beneficiaries effectively. As someone with the capacity and willingness to dedicate my time and expertise, I am prepared to invest the necessary energy to address the challenges and opportunities we face. I would like to also assure this body that there are no challenges to my attendance at meetings, considering my current profession and involvement. My schedule allows for the flexibility needed to fully commit to the responsibility of this position, ensuring that I can actively participate and contribute to all board activities and deliberations. I am passionate about the Commission's principles, authority, and responsibility in protecting, preserving, and stabilizing the resources of Guahan. This passion drives my commitment to ensure that our lands and resources are managed sustainably and that the interests of our people are always at the forefront of our efforts. Additionally, I am deeply committed to preserving and advocating to the rights and the heritage of all. This commitment is at the core of my desire to serve on this commission, as I believe in the importance of safeguarding our cultural legacy for future generations. The policy and guidelines governing the CHamoru Land Trust further informs my approach. I am aware of the resolution significance, Resolution 2020-02, in reinforcing the Commission's authority and the ethical principles that guide our management of these lands. My commitment is to ensure that our policies outlined in this resolution are implemented effectively and in the best interest of our people. The preservation of our cultural heritage is a mission that I hold dear. I am prepared to contribute my knowledge and skills to further the goals of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. I believe in transparency, accountability, and community involvement, and I'm committed to fostering a collective environment where diverse voices are heard and respected. My approach will be rooted in fairness, equity, and the best interest for all beneficiaries. As far when it comes to legal and regulatory compliance, it is essential to maintain the integrity of our trust. I will work diligently to ensure that our activities adhere to all applicable laws and that we address any disputes with fairness and transparency. In conclusion, I am deeply committed to the mission of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. I bring to this role a dedication to serving our beneficiaries, a respect for our heritage, and a vision for sustainable and prosperous future. I am eager to work with this esteemed body and our community to fulfill the promise of our trust and honor the legacy of the beneficiaries. I am committed to upholding the values and responsibility of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. I am eager to work with fellow board commissioners, community leaders, and all stakeholders to safeguard our land for current and future generations. Thank you for this opportunity and for considering my nomination. I look forward to your questions and to the chance to serve our community with integrity and dedication. Jesus Masi.
Jesus Masi, Mr. Ibanez, and thank you to all of you who've come to testify on his behalf. And thank you for that extensive testimony, or thorough testimony. It's appropriate, I believe, and explains your intention and your knowledge of the different aspects that have been brought up over the years. The resolution was something that the board of directors compiled after years and years of trying to battle things one by one, and they decided they needed their own mission going forward and very strict policy. Their strategic plan, they've again reiterated their mission and who the beneficiaries are and how we're supposed to be trying to make it convenient for them. Sure. So I appreciate your doing your work on this. And I know that you are very qualified to serve. I mean, you know, that you bring additional skills to this, so I'm looking forward to that as well. We're pretty stuck. They found already in the past that compliance did not comply. So now we are looking for what was not legal to make legal in different ways, and that's a very tough thing, I feel like, to do. So, but we've been trying to make our way in a way that it is fair. And that's really the challenge, that it's fair to those who really complied with every single rule. And but the problem is it was in some occasion actions of the directors as a whole, maybe based on advice that they were getting also from lawyers at the time. So this is a big challenge for us to fix now. But I welcome your, and I'm grateful for your willingness to serve on this board and acknowledging the time that it's going to take and acknowledging that your attendance is going, you're flexible and you're going to be able to make that commitment. I very much appreciate that. If the board, you know, is empowered by statute to hire a director, are you willing to take on that challenge of independently hiring a director for the CLTC?
As a governing board commission, we are, and definitely we will be looking into the roles, the responsibility of this director to ensure that it fulfills the resolutions, the adherence to CHamoru Land Trust Commission. So definitely we'll be looking into that.
All right. Your skills come from being employed with the Bank of Guam over 30 years, as Mr. Attorney Rapadas said, and of course your resume shows all the different roles that you've played there, so I think those are very beneficial. Do you believe, or how does your employment with the Bank of Guam affect your ability to serve independently despite perhaps pressure from your employer or the governor, who also has an interest in the bank?
First and foremost, if we look at the resolution 2020-22, there should be, and item number 11 was the commissioners shall not succumb to political pressure in addressing your concern with the governor's influence or for any other reason. The commission is established as a trust and shall operate independently. So in that aspect of it, we're not going to succumb to any personal or special interest groups or anything out there. In regards to my employment is with the Bank of Guam. And you don't have any conflict of interest in terms of lands or because they're not CHamoru Land Trust properties.
All right. What about commercial leases? Those might also be your clients as well? I don't know.
I'm not in that role. I'm in the compliance aspects.
Okay.
We're guided by regulatory restrictions.
All right. I appreciate the bank's willingness to allow you the flexibility to serve in this capacity, and they did that for previous chair as well. So I'm very grateful that we do have private entities that are willing to allow their people to serve in these public service positions. Were you sent with any particular mission on this board? And I ask this weird question, and maybe I mentioned it to you earlier, because one of the first things that one of the acting directors announced when he came to the first meeting was that he was sent there to take care of the raceway. And I'm asking you if you were sent with any purpose.
No, Speaker. My qualifications spoke as it is, and that's why I was nominated for the position itself.
And I know you said in your testimony that you also want to be fair. We have beneficiaries. These are those whose land have been taken, and we have been, that was a massive land taking. So we've got decades of, what happened to them for decades to make up for and to try to give them a place to live. So I appreciate, again, your willingness to serve. Just a couple more questions. The CLTC is going to be looking for, we talked about USDA, we talked about going through GWA, we talked about going through Government of Guam, but of course they need to look for always additional funding, grants perhaps for infrastructure. Do you think you would be able to help them in that regard?
Yes.
And of course, the compliance, I'm not even going to bother to ask you. I think you'll be very good at the compliance parts for the commercial leases and the residential and agricultural leases, just get them to comply with the rules moving forward, while we all together as a community try to take care of what happened in the past and come to some kind of justice for those who, through no fault of their own, but while we make it fair for all those who are still waiting in line. It's a real tough situation. Do you have any opinion on the raceway?
In regards to the raceway and the authorization to lease all or portion of the raceways, one of the critical concern, I believe that is Bill 325-37 that came up where you're looking at.
There are several bills. One is to allow them to lease it in portions. One is to allow them to lease the whole thing, and with different terms and different requirements.
Right. So one of the things there that we must look at carefully is to protect and preserve the mission of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. And that's the benefit for the Chamorro people. The rest of the property is a significant portion of land. And leasing it for commercial purpose could limit its ability for other uses. And if we go to the resolution 2020, our objective there is basically focusing on residential and agricultural leases. And the intent, if we're going to lease 250 acres of land, how does that benefit the community itself? Now, if just from reading in the newspaper, off that 250, 44 acres are strictly for utilization of what the existing raceway park was using itself. Now, the 206 acres, feasible studies of what the purpose can be used for benefit residential leases, agricultural leases, is all the intent of how we structure that. The balance must be for economic and benefits of the lease itself. And then you also got to take into consideration the cultural and historical significance of the land, ensuring that the Chamorro people's rights and heritage are not compromised.
I believe the CLTC can benefit from reprioritization of its strategic objectives that they've laid out. I think those are still good. They look good to me. I just think, in my opinion, sometimes if you look at the agendas and the hours that are spent, I think the board members might need to commit to doing a lot of the work prior to the meetings, right? Of course, you're not supposed to discuss this with each other and you go to the meeting and that's when you discuss, but all the reading of the documents, questioning the staff or the director as to, do I have everything? Do you have everything that you need in order to make a decision when you go to the meeting? That worked very well for us on the War Claims Commission, where we were not allowed to talk to each other or identify who we were talking about when we go to the except, I mean, even when we're in the meeting. So we would individually go and review all the files of these individual claimants. And in here, your commission has individual cases, where there are issues that need to be resolved by a board. But it's so much detailed work that I feel like it might benefit. This is just a suggestion that it might benefit from individual review of those cases, questioning of your director or staff, and bringing all of that with you to the meeting as opposed to trying to catch up during a meeting. And not just to you, but I mean that for all the commissioners who are here. Thank you all for being here. I just think there are some ways you can streamline your meetings a little bit. If it is impossible to solve, take it off your agenda or, postpone it right away, as opposed to, you should be able to know that from your research in advance, perhaps, right? Like, this case is not ready to resolve. It doesn't have what we need in here, so you can quickly move on. But again, I prefer that the commission focuses on its large objectives, right? Like, where are the tracks we are going to lease, to show the progress of the registrations, the surveys, show the progress of the infrastructure, and while we all try to resolve these void or voidable leases from the past, but we must have a plan of how we're getting these leases going forward, right? These new leases. It's been too long for the new leases, and so we have to, I just really want all your efforts to be focused on that. We can't get distracted with too many, these are unsolicited proposals that come before staff at the CLTC. This is a specific term of procurement in the government of Guam, unsolicited proposals. That means they come in and they say, this is what we want to do with your land. But really, it's supposed to work the other way, where the CLT says, we need this land for residential leases, all of this land for agriculture. This is how we're going to take care of all of those on our waiting list, and then we can open up the waiting list, right? Or these are lands we don't need. They're supposed to make a declaration that these are lands we don't need before they do commercial leases. And so I'm suggesting you don't need land that is completely unusable for residential leases or some other criteria that you're going to come up with, but it's you guys that have to declare that you do not need it for residential or agriculture. That's your priority. But if you read the agendas, I'm just saying this one more time, because if you read the agendas, the bulk of those are commercial proposals, alternate proposals, and I think luckily we're looking at a land trust that's looking at some actual revenues that they can bank on. So I'm hoping that will be the case, as opposed to being terribly desperate to get rid of your land or and that we really need to get excellent value, and I'm looking forward to your input on these things. We used to lease, the CLTC used to lease submerged lands, $10,000 for like a year, the entire thing. And these are the companies then lease out to Google and Facebook. It was incredible. So we've changed that a little bit, but I still think with the hard work and dedication of the board, we can really continue to find the best value for your land. And in that way, then you've got your money for your infrastructure, more lots, residential lots going out. So those are my suggestions, and wishing you the best, of course, in this endeavor is difficult, but all of your minds together, I know that you guys can do this, you men and women, under the leadership of the chair, Sizus Masi. So, Senator Dueñas.
Sizus Masi, Madam Chair, and Mr. Ibanez, thank you for being before us today and accepting the nomination of the governor. I note that the letter from the governor came on September 20, 2023, so you have already shown that you exude patience and a willingness to serve, because here we are today. I want to comment first that obviously you have distinguished colleagues who've come before us today to vouch for your integrity and to vouch for the fact that you work in one of the most strict environments of compliance, dealing with federal officials who are not particularly forgiving when it comes to compliance and those things. So for that reason, I remain confident as you've presented yourself before us today. I'm very impressed that you came prepared, certainly, through your testimony, and I feel as though your words of commitment to the mission and the like were also expressed within your testimony. I think you've answered pretty much a lot of the questions from the speaker on a number of different issues. I kind of want to go to your usefulness, and I'm glad the other board members are still here. I think that what you bring to the table here more than anything else, besides what you've mentioned in your testimony, is technical assistance. And I think that I'm going to implore the rest of the board members to consider establishing a subcommittee, essentially, of the board to do exactly that, to provide that technical assistance. And I think that that's where your value really is going to be paramount here. And in doing so, as the speakers mentioned, and I think you can probably see the vision here, that the preparation for, first of all, as I mentioned earlier, and I think the board will continue to take this up, and we'll take it up as we move forward, to not continue to be set up for failure, and that's to make sure the tools, and you'll see that too, because you know in your industry, you guys don't move unless you got what you need to get the job done. So you can even put fresh eyes on that and see if you concur with what Mr. Garrido and others have said, that the operation is woefully unstructured to carry out its final mission and to accomplish the backlog. The second is, in this situation, I really believe that you can maybe present to the board and fast forward on an evaluation through that subcommittee, recommendations for streamlining and also ensuring the, moving forward because of the technical nature in which you conduct yourself. I wanted to see if you concur that would be, because that's what's important to me at this point, if you concur that you see that as a high value that you will bring other than your deliberations on board matters.
Definitely, that will be brought forward, looked into. We need to look at a subcommittee and talk about all the aspects that needs to be done. Make it agenda-driven. Therefore, you don't have these long meetings to occur. You're able to come in with agenda-driven, and all the answers and concerns have already been addressed. If it needs legal aspect, it should go to legal aspect before a final board meeting. So a lot of the things can be agenda-driven. It's just a matter of how we structure it and then move forward.
Because what I'd like to see, if hopeful of your confirmation, is the board, once again, using your technical capabilities to come in and work as a subcommittee, making that evaluation. And then when you have the chance to bring this forward collectively with the board, make a presentation to the board, and then come before us to kind of do a work through on what the findings were. Because I just think that those, as I've seen it, because I've worked in a lot of technical positions, and by the way, I think one of the most compelling testimonies in here too has become from Manny Duenas, the co-op president, has already shown your volunteerism through other operations to where you've gone in and assisted technically with their structure, and that is very laudable. It shows your willingness, even here, I believe you've testified it's not skin in the game, you want to serve, but Manny's put it on paper that's who you are and that's the character that you have. So duplicating that effort in terms of what you've done in other cooperatives and the like to bring about that, that technical capability, I think that this is a great appointment, and I think that that's where you're best utilized. So I just want to hear that commitment one more time from you, and certainly I think that many of us here can really appreciate what you'll bring to the table.
Definitely, we would enforce that, move forward.
Susmasi, Madam Chair, that's really all I have for now, given the fact that I believe the applicant and the nominee has really engrossed himself through the presentation of his testimony on understanding what he's getting himself into. but that is my feeling in terms of what the balance of the board. This technical assistance, I think, is greatly needed. Suzus Masi.
Senator Dueñas. Senator Caneta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ibanez, for answering the governor's call on serving the people of Guam. Based on your resume, I don't have many questions for you. There's quite a few individuals who've vouched for your service and your, experience in the banking field and other fields. So, what are your short-term goals for the CHamoru Land Trust Commission? Granted that you're confirmed, and how do you see long-term goals being achieved with those short-term goals?
First of all, in the short-term goals, it's looking at like how we discussed in technical aspects. We want to make sure that we're able to move our leases forward. At the same time, make it an agenda-driven so that you have the ability to take all the pending leases, look at all the issues, concerns, and discuss that prior to coming into the board. The long-term goal is to ensure at the same time that our commercial leases are was one of the newest laws that came into play. Based on the CHamoru Land Trust, you had the residential and agriculture. Commercial laws was just a argument just to support the infrastructure project. Now, when you look at the commercial leases, we got to look at it on a business aspect. We got to really look at the feasibility of that commercial. What does it hold? How much of a lease rental can we get? And we can't come in for individuals to come in that may have $1,000, $500, when we know that lease can make more than X amount of dollars. And we have to put our feet down because this is the way it should be. We have to think of it as a business endeavor, and we cannot just continue to say, okay, we'll give it to you at a low end and we're losing money, when really the whole purpose of CHamoru Land Trust was to fund the infrastructure, to build, put in for subdivide the property, put in the infrastructure so you can now have these leases to lease out. Another of the long-term goal is go out there, get the leases, generate the revenue, create and take a look at a subdivision. When you look at a subdivision, you can take how many acres? 50 acres, divide that into half-acre lots. Why do we need to look at your top priority, number one? And if you're having problems, put that to the side. Move into the next one. And let's not be, hey, I need a property over in Malesu or Barragata or Zigu. Well, guess what? I gave you the land, and the land comes with equity. So you got to think of the equity position you already have. You inherited a $60,000 going rate right now is for a half-acre lot is not what it used to be back then. The cost is much higher, of $85,000 plus more. Well, you have equity in the property itself. So you got 50 acres. You can make, 20, 30 subdivisions, house lots. Your 30 down the line can move forward one by one in there, and you're now saying, here are your lease agreements. Put them in. Well, if you don't want Zigu, well, guess what? We'll move you to the site, move into the next applicant up there, and put a clause out there that this individual or this beneficiary does not want the lot in Zigu, and therefore let them sign that agreement. Those are long-term goals. But we can still work in that commission, put together, and achieve the goal of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. I hope that answers that question.
Very good. I don't have any personal, connection to you, but I certainly support you in your endeavors. You answered the following 3 questions very fairly with your first statement, so I have nothing further, Madam Chair. Wish you all the best, and thank you again for your public service.
Senator Caneta. Senator Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and certainly good afternoon to you, Mr. Ibanez. I know earlier with my questions to Board Member Garrido, I mean, you have the gist pretty much of what my concern is. I think a number of us, I did have an opportunity a few years ago to work with the CHamoru Land Trust through the University of Guam. And we had an agreement that allowed us to come in and provide assistance because they did not have the staff support to do these field inspections for them to go out and ensure there's compliance. And that's been the issue of concern. I mean, from all the way down from the residential to the agricultural. There's a lot of agricultural lots that have been leased that have never been used for that purpose. And again, there are others in the community that would qualify, would want to have that opportunity, would see it as a tremendous gift. And sometimes, you know, when you have something, you don't appreciate it, and if the land trust doesn't enforce those requirements, you know, it's just left to squander or unfortunately be misused. So I wanted to, I mean, I appreciate the testimony you've provided. I think you understand the challenges. It's tough to make decisions because we're a small community. But sometimes decisions get made not by following the rules, but, you know, sometimes the emotion, or like I said, the connect to the connect, or who knows who or who knows what. And we end up with a situation that we're in, and then those that play by the rules kind of get left behind. And that's not an exception sometimes on Guam. It's sometimes the way things go, and people that don't comply, you know, they run circles around the commission. They still hold on to the land. They're not meeting the requirements, and the commission is almost not capable of doing anything about it. And then everybody else gets left out in the cold. And that's pretty much been for me, you know, going on 20, heading into 30 years now, since the implementation of the land trust, the standard. So what I see a lot of your credentials, and I definitely appreciate all the testimony that has been provided on your behalf, that you have, you know, a very impressive resume and support from members of your community coming forth to support your nomination. But how do you think you're going to roll that boulder uphill to try and address the changes that really are needed to ensure fairness? Because to me, at the end of the day, I think we should be fair to everybody, and those that work hard should be rewarded, and those that are not responsible and abuse the system, I don't think they should be rewarded. But right now, that's the way it works. It seems backward. We say that's not what we like and what we want. That's not what we want our children to do. But my goodness, we're right there ourselves. So I want to get your feedback on that.
Well, first and foremost, it's the resolution 2020-02. These are the guiding principles that we must follow in the CHamoru Land Trust. And if we have that on our mindset, every single board, and we continue to follow through on this, we should not be in the position that we're in right now. And if we are, then we need to go back and take a look at where did we fail. From that position, then we look at all the issues that concern agricultural leases. What's causing it to be an issue? If you have a unregistered, and you have multiple properties unregistered, we need to find where the gap is. Why is it that we have unregistered lands when really the intent is we should be surveying the property, or in some cases, the beneficiaries will survey it. But do we have a process in place, a checklist that says, hey, if it was surveyed, or here's your land, this is what you need to do. On the residential site, the same process. But we have to make sure that the commitment from the CLT and the commitment from the beneficiaries are on par, meaning that you agree, the individual agrees that I met these criteria, and that if in the event that there's something that went wrong, I understand that I may not get this property. And I don't know if we have these things in place yet, but certainly I would have to take a look into it and determine how can we implement a checklist, a procedural process that allows the beneficiaries to know. At some point, you're squatting on land. What do? Well, you really didn't own the land to begin with, right? But you have to be mindful of the individual and how did you get the land. So you start digging, finding out where the gap is, close that gap.
How about with regards to enforcement? I mean, that to me seems to be a very difficult challenge for the land trust. And as we mentioned, you have leases, some cases leases out there on the commercial side. They're subleasing to other parties, and there's a requirement for CHamoru Land Trust and commercial properties that if you sublease the property, the land trust actually land trust has to approve the sublease, and land trust also gets a certain percentage of that sublease as their revenue. And that's not been the case. I mean, we even have some lands probably that are agricultural that are being subleased and rented out to others. So that should not be the case, or don't have concurrence of the land trust, because the intent was for those that are eligible recipients to actually be the ones to work the land and to live on the land.
Right. So again, it goes back to following through. If you have commercial leases, who is checking these commercial lists on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis? Are they looking at this closely to say, this is our revenue generated? This revenue that we're receiving should supplement our infrastructure so we can start moving building, getting the power, water in there. And if we're not systematically, closely looking at these things on a day-to-day basis, on a monthly basis, then we're going to miss a lot of the issues that you're seeing right now. Part of the lease also, you have to look at the terms and conditions of the lease. Is subleasing available? I mean, is it part of the clause? If it's not, then we need to move forward to legal. Okay, you violated this commercial lease, agricultural lease. And if you have a distinction between agriculture and commercial leases, then we have to make that distinction. But we don't, legal needs to come into play. Before we even take any legal action, is confirmed that, yeah, you violated this. This is the process that needs to be in place before we move and start. Because you got others out there that are waiting for property that you're, well, I violated it, and it's just a slap on our hands. But we have to enforce it, because the whole purpose of CHamoru Land Trust is for beneficiaries, for future generations to come.
And how will you, I guess I'm hoping, I'm using the word aggressive with regards to collections and a timeline, because I've seen, like in some cases, some of these leases were there when I was still up there looking at them. And it's the same, you know, the list is the same, and who's at the top of the list is still the same.
Well,
and, you know, they come in and they tell their story, and they get to slide years later, and they're still sitting there, and they're still using it, and they're still not paying, and somehow we're supposed to be grateful that they're paying their lease, which to me, you know, it's like your mortgage. I got to pay my mortgage every month. I don't get a choice, and I don't let it slide, and if I don't, I'm sure the collector's going to call me and say, hey, if you don't pay it, you know, we're going to repossess your home. That seems to be basic, but not when it comes to land trusts, not when it comes to government resources or the resources of the people. They get so abused, and, you know, the land trust, even now, they've let some of these things slide for quite a long time, where, you know, you go after 90 days, 100, 20, whatever the deadline is, if they have not paid, that lease should be canceled. The bottom line is these commercial leases exist to generate revenue. And if they're not generating revenue, I mean, I don't know that we should be talking story all the time and letting things slide.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, because one of the main, a good example would be the Guam International Country Club. Mm-hmm. You're back due on rent, right? But what did they end up doing? They're turning around saying, if I have rent, if I'm back doing rent, I want to put solar power farm up there. Well, how can you put a solar power farm financially? Can I trust this in a financial aspect of it? Because if you can't manage the Guam International, the land, and pay your rent to, what makes me think that you can still fulfill the solar farm? Okay, that's a prime example that you're talking about, in the sense of how are we going to achieve this? Well, when you look at the commercial, if you violate it, you should be, I mean, you leased it, you're signing an agreement. Mm-hmm. Where is the follow-through? Where is your notices? Where is the fact that you're saying you violated this lease, you didn't pay 30, 60, 90, 120? Your letters should be going out on a consistent basis to ensure that they are aware that you violated this lease. To the point of, now we have to, as the CHamoru Land Trust Commission, have to take control of this. Why does it have to wait till it gets 800,000, 900,000, $1 million? At the point in time, you're not even able to financially support another endeavor, and yet again, you can't even pay your back rent. So that's the potential remedy, is the lack of, how you look at the structure of the lease. And if you're not following the commercial and you're looking at terms and conditions, you're going to have the same situation going on. And that's where you're going to have to come in and pull back, take an analysis, take a look at everything, put everything. This lease has these following conditions that needs to be met. Are we meeting it? You know, whether it takes a letter to the leasee, saying we as CHamoru Land Trust are going to be doing a review of your lease agreement, and we're giving you enough time to fulfill the obligations that is needed based on the following criteria of the lease agreement. You must meet these conditions.
Well, I'm just going to quickly wrap this up, but I know we also have the issues with regards to liabilities on the land because of activities that have occurred that may be leaving contaminants that end up being the burden of the land trust, because some of these businesses, they could fold tomorrow and disappear, and the burden and the damage is there. That's one thing. The other thing is a thing like the raceway, and I know there's a lot of discussion and controversy with the raceway property, but there's also properties that have been put aside of the land trust, including the soccer fields that we have that our children play on. And of course, they're not looked at as major revenue streams to the land trust, but they provide a valuable community service. So what are your thoughts on that, and whether or not these particular, and I don't know if it's current, if whether current requirements and arrangements, because they're not big financial generators for the land trust, but there are requirements that those organizations need to meet to the land trust with regards to what revenue stream they do pay, and are they consistent in following through with that? What's your view on that? Because it's not something that's a major generator, but nevertheless, land trust property has been used for and given for those type of purposes that I think a lot of us can agree have a value to our community.
True. Part again, the CHamoru Land Trust law, and it is part of the benefit the community as a whole. When you look at that, does it benefit the community? Is it just for special interest because I want to go, and I'll give the example because it's out in the newspaper, golfing versus race rail. Do we give you the 250 acres that you need? What benefits is it going to benefit? Can I give you the 44 acres? Because it does benefit the community as a whole. And when you look at that, why do you need 250? Why? Have they done a feasibility analysis to say this is what I'm looking at doing? This is the purpose itself, as compared to taking it to a solar farm, or do I keep the $1,000? Do I keep the existing lease for the golf course, or do I transfer that into a solar farm? Where does it fall within the benefit based on the fiduciary of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission? Because that's the whole intent of the CHamoru Land Trust, is to provide for the benefit of the community itself. And we have to look at that carefully. I mean, yeah, we may frown, they may not like us, but we got to treat this like a business itself, because we are an independent commission itself, that we have to fulfill the obligation of our commission itself.
Well, I certainly welcome your input and look forward to the work that the CHamoru Land Trust Commission can do moving forward. I think we all want to see the better operation and the benefits of what was intended as to why the land trust was created. So thank you very much, Mr. Ibanez, for stepping up. I know after the hearing this afternoon, I hope you don't have second or third consideration as to whether or not to proceed, but it appears you're willing to move forward. And we just want to see more productive outcomes from the land trust and those that are intended to benefit from it. So thank you for stepping forth to provide your service and your expertise to the commission.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Masi, Senator Brown. Minority Leader, Senator Blas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Jeffrey, I'm sure that you kind of fear that I was the last one. Because for as long as I've known you, it was just a couple weeks ago that I found out your first name was Jeffrey. Okay, when I looked at your package and I was like, who's this? Okay. And then I get a call from you and says, hey, I'm going up for appointment, and is that you? And I say that because, other than the Land Trust Commission members who don't know you, I think other than Danilo and some of the people from Banguam, I think I've known you the most. Okay? And what impresses me more so than your banking experience, and I appreciate your compliance, is your civic participation. That it shows that you want to take on a challenge. As long as I've known you, and I'm speaking to you, I tell you, you've got a great individual in this commission, member, because for as long as I've known Jeffrey, I'm going to call him John, okay? For as long as I've known John, Earl, you can appreciate this because like a fish, when he holds on to bait, he doesn't let go. Okay, he's got the tenacity of wanting to be able to see things through. I know this because of the number of times that we've had conversations and his passion to move on certain things and to want to do things. It doesn't surprise me that you want to take on this role. Okay, it doesn't surprise me that you want to take on more roles. Okay. Your tsugi basically shows how much stress you want to put on your body, okay? But I'm not going to get into did you know how long his hair is for the bank? Okay, yeah, okay, okay. I'm just asking.
It's hiding.
I was asking, you know, every time I see him, I ask him, I says, does your boss know about your hair? Okay. But, you know, and I think that the value that you bring, now let's go professionally, the value that you bring into the commission, I think as of late we've heard, and there's no doubt, okay? There are compliance concerns, there are issues with regard to compliance. And it's something that needs to be addressed before we can move forward. And I think with your extensive background in that arena, okay, with that kind of knowledge, you'll know how to be able to take care of that. And that's what the value that I see, the value that you bring to this, along with your passion for the culture, the heritage. Okay, you got no doubt from me, Jeffrey, that you've gotten my vote, because I know you and I know your passion. Okay, and everything that Ronald back there behind you said, and as far as I know, he's going to hold your feet to the fire too, por este. Okay, so thank you very much for stepping up, for your commitment on this thing, and I'm going to say in advance, congratulations and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Blas. Could I ask the acting director, Mr. Cruz, since you are here and we have all the commissioners here, if you don't mind answering a couple questions. Just can you clarify, so are all these board members eligible to vote according to the statute during meetings?
We're verifying the existing board members? The 3?
No, I mean, let's say there are 4. Are they all, is the chairperson also authorized to vote?
Normally she has broken the ties. So it just takes 3.
3 of?
To have a quorum. So currently we only have 3.
3 for quorum, and how many to pass?
Just 2. Well, what has been happening is just 1 to make a motion and 1 to second. So the 3 that makes the quorum will suffice.
3, and the chair can vote. There's nothing in the statute I've seen that prevents her from, she's a member.
Yes.
And so she can vote. And who manages the CHamoru Land Trust leases, commercial leases?
Currently myself with another employee.
All right, so Gita does not manage your leases for you?
There's an MOU, but there's nothing that has came to fruition with the MOU.
Do you pay them?
No.
Okay, that's good. So then, can you talk just real quickly about your hiring?
So we submitted our FY 2025 budget to recruit, I believe, for 6 additional bodies. The GG1 should be submitted by Friday. It was a matter of preparing the position descriptions, which should be completed by Wednesday, and then we just go through the process.
So those will be not hired until FY25?
That's possibly correct.
Can they be hired during FY24?
If the review of the announcement of the positions and then the review takes place within 2024, then yes.
That's already authorized, right? And that's being reviewed by who?
The PDs?
Yes, position descriptions?
Myself.
All right. So who authorizes it in the end? Who approves it?
Myself.
Okay.
Or the director, whomever the director is.
So when you approve these position descriptions that are already created, you can hire?
We submit it through the DOA process for a GG1 and all that other great stuff.
All right. And audits, can you just remind everyone who's listening how often you get audited and by who?
Currently, I'm the individual also responsible for the independent financial audits that happen annually.
You mean you in your regular job or you as acting director?
Both.
Okay.
Well,
all right.
I continue to do it. I also oversee the independent financial audits for Guam Ancestral. So I do both, and I work with the OPA's office. Currently, both CLTC's audits are conducted under EY, the independent auditor.
All right. Okay, and all right, Mrs. Masi, and there's no reason that the agendas cannot be kind of restructured to show some of the progress on these strategic goals in your strategic plan?
There is no reason, and we'll structure it. But in the last meeting, I did provide some updates under the director's report.
Okay.
But we can put it as line items.
All right. So I appreciate your work. So Joey's work, it's complex even for me over these years because his position as, sometimes he's the acting, sometimes the directors are not consistent. So he's a very important source of information and continuity of information. So yeah, I'm hoping that you continue to serve these commission members with all the information that they possibly can get so that they can make the best decisions. Mr. Did you have a question? Okay, yeah, that's it. That's what I wanted to just, hopefully just those questions as well.
If I may, Speaker, the staff, when staff reports are prepared, we provide everything, whether it's favorable or not, to ensure that the board, the commissioners have all the information to make an educated decision based on what we have within the Act or the GAR. So definitely, yes, we do provide everything, like I said, if it's favorable or not.
Right. And you've increased your teams, or not, but you've kind of directed your teams. So now we've got compliance teams who are active. They really became inactive for a little while there, but now they've been reactivated to enforce. Maybe you could just describe your enforcement teams.
So, like I mentioned in one of the public hearings, is recently we've assembled a compliance team. We just recently completed the compliance inspections of Track 9210. I believe we have about 25 letters that are going to be going out by Friday due to non-compliance. We're going to give them a 60-day window to come into compliance. If that doesn't occur, and depending on the violation, if the inspection, there's a question of environmental issues, we definitely will send a letter to EPA. If there's no progress or the violation is not addressed within 60 days, that matter will be, staff report will be prepared and will be submitted to the board for their action.
All right, and you've been now getting consistent response or accommodation, at least at your board meetings, with the Attorney General's office.
That's correct.
All right.
The current attorney, Assistant Attorney General Miller, has also been very responsive. When we send them an inquiry within the day, most of the time we get a response.
Okay, so just Masi. All right, thank you, Director, and thank you, Mr. Ibanez. And you had some additional questions or comments?
Yes, just point of clarification. The structure of the CLT board, it's a governing board. Now, I know we have a director in the board on providing all the information needed to the board. Now, maybe, I just want to understand the process. So you brought up something where wouldn't all information gets funneled up to the board for approval process before it goes, or is it true just individual, the director makes the decisions? So, coming in, I'm trying to get an understanding of the process itself, because, right now you have an independent individual, or seeking to hire individuals, but you don't have the board approval to make any sort of form of decisions, whether the job description is sufficient, whether it complies. How do you go about structuring and just understanding the legality of what the board can do and what the board can do? Because if you got a lot of information, approval or not recommended going up to the board, your agenda is long. If you're only looking for action, then your agenda can be streamlined itself, because action needs board approval to move forward for approval process for the lease agreements. Whereas if you looked at it and you say, well, it don't need, it's already declined to meet any of the criteria, we got to send it back to get more information.
Yeah.
And you get the information, you work with the beneficiaries to fulfill that, then it comes in and says, okay, we have all the information, move it up to the board level. So just understanding that process itself makes it easier for me to understand the board itself of CHamoru Land Trust coming into.
Because of prior AG review of the board's action or non-action and the action that was done solely by directors, they've given some very specific guidelines as to what must be approved by the board, and it's from the law and the rules that says, commission must do this, so the commission must do that. I am sure that the director and the team prepare all kinds of things, and they are able to manage this without, board daily direction. They have plans, but all of those can be reviewed by the board whenever the board decides. Like just, to say, for example, it's a report or you need additional information. Of course, I think you can request, but I'm sure that all directors now are conscious that if they act alone and it's not authorized in the law, in 5 years, some legal review of all of our actions might be questioned. So I'm pretty sure they act with either legal authority that they've confirmed with their council, or that they bring it to the board in the end for final approval. Right? Director Cruz? All right. That's a good question, and you just continue to communicate with your commission and the director regarding those things with council. Now that your council's active, I think that's a big change. It was really a challenge for a while there. Okay, so hopefully progress for FY25 coming up. But again, thank you to all of you who've testified, all of you who've come to be here in support and not testify. Did you want to say more? Okay. Oh, please, yes.
Members of the committee and esteemed guests, as we bring this hearing to a close, I want to express my deepest gratitude for the trust and considerations you have extended to me today. To be nominated for the CHamoru Land Trust Commission board is a profound honor, and I have fully recognized the weight of the responsibility. This is not just about managing land, it's about safeguarding the hearts of our identity, our history, and the legacy we leave for future generations. The CHamoru Land Trust is more than an institution, it's a promise to our ancestors that we will protect what they entrusted to us, and a promise to our children that we preserve the richness of our heritage. Serving on this board demands not only expertise, but a commitment to something larger than oneself. It requires a deep-rooted passion for justice, a steadfast dedication to fairness, and a relentless focus on the well-being of our people. In my years of experience within the financial industry, I have learned that true stewardship goes beyond managing resources. It's about making decisions that will resonate positively for generations. I am here today because I believe that my skills in strategic planning, fiscal accountability, and ethical leadership can help guide the Commission in making decisions that honor the past, respect the future, the present, and empower the future. I assure you that I am ready to dedicate my full energy, time, and expertise for this role. There will be no hesitation in my commitment, no conflicts in my duties, and no challenges too great for my resolve. I understand the critical nature of the Commission's work, and I'm prepared to stand firm in the face of challenges to ensure that our land and our heritage remain protected. But more than anything, I stand before you driven by deep passion for the principles that guide the CHamoru Land Trust Commission. This is not just a role I'm seeking, it's a mission I am committed to, a mission to serve, protect, and uplift the Chamorro people by ensuring that the lands we hold, sacred, is managed with respect, care, and vision it deserves. As you deliberate on my nomination, know that I'm ready to serve with the integrity, the dedication, and the passion that the road demands. Together, we can ensure that the CHamoru Land Trust Commission not only fulfills its mission, but leaves a legacy that our ancestors will be proud of and that our future generations will honor. Thank you for your time, your trust, and your consideration. Sizusmasi.
Sizusmasi, Mr. Ibanez, and thank you again for accepting this appointment. And there being no further individuals to present testimony, this committee will consider the appointment of Jeffrey John P. Ibanez to serve as a member of the CHamoru Land Trust Commission duly heard. For those who would like to continue to submit testimony, you may do so until tomorrow at 5 p.m. here at the Guam Congress Building or to Senator Terlaje @gmail.com. This hearing is now adjourned. It is 5:32. We're adjourned.